Dobro veče i dobrodošli u 99 jardi, ja sam Vanja, ovo je 88. izdanje, poseban broj zapravo za navijače Dallas Cowboysa.
Da, Dez Bryant,
Michael Irving, sad CD Lamb, tako da to je za njih, ovo je i neka vrsta jubileja. Nadam se da ste dobro, što bi rekao Srki, mazite se i pazite se, s moje desne strane je Jimmy.
Ćao mama.
Jesi dobro?
Odlično sam.
Da ti čestitam za titule.
Hvala.
Kako je bio utisak meča generalno?
Odličan meč. Kao što smo ga najavili prošle nedelje, stvarno meč vredan finala i ja mislim da je bio najbolji meč u sezoni što se tiče domaćeg prvenstva i onako dve čvrste ekipe sa dobrim odbranama koje su se borile do bukvalno posljednjeg zvižduka, jer je ekipa Wild Borsa imala posljednji drive na meču. Dobro su kontrolisali sat, ali eto, jedan blokiran pokušaj dodavanja koji se završi interceptionom s naše strane.
Neki nerealni interception.
Ma, totalno nerealno. Ja sam to proživio u mojoj glavi, to je trajalo 5 sekundi, ta lopta bila u vazduhu. I jedno za drugim, prvo blok pasa kao super, sad je četvrti dan, onda naš defanzivni end koji ide ka lopti, ja prvo što pomislim u glavi je nemoj da nam daješ lažnu nadu, ne možeš da uvatiš, ti igraš defanzivnu liniju. Baca se po nju, ja i dalje kao okej, bit će dobar pokušaj, ali ništa. Stavlja ruke na nju, rekao, ispušta je 100%, on igra D-line, to ne rade igrači defanzivne linije. Hvata i pada, rekao, sudje nisu vidjeli, sad će kažu incomplete. Kažu prvi dan Vukov interception. Wow. Pote sezone, da, i to posljednje u sezoni.
Čekaj, moram te pitam. Inače, snimili smo intervju sa Đorđom Tavekijem u sredu, pustit ćemo ga posle, malo ću naprođen kroz neke glavne vesti u NFL-u i posle Q&A, a pre toga, ovo ti je 3 pit. 3 za redom se zvanično osvojili, kao ti pogotovo kao head coach. Ako možeš da izdvojiš, koji ti je omiljen ovo 3 bio? A znam da je teško pitanje, ali sam morao.
Pa ne znam, prvo kad smo osvojili, bilo je kao prva, dokaz sebi, kao možemo to. Drug, pošto je prva bila u onoj ligi 7-7 bez opreme zbog koronavirusa. Druga koju smo osvojili prošle godine bila je opet dokaz sebi, možemo u to 11-11. A osvojili smo proti Kragujevca u finalu, pošto prošle godine nisu. Tako da je ovo dokaz da pobedili smo i Kragujevac. Tako da ne znam, ne bih mogao da izdvojim. Mislim, sad tek, mislim, razumeo sam to i ranije. Kad je Brady govorio omiljena ti je sledeća. Stvarno ti je omiljena sledeća iz prostog razloga što to je to. Za mene ova više ne postoji. Ona je jednako daleko kao i titula koju smo osvojili kao igrač pre, 10 godina, tako nešto.
On tu Cincinnati, taj fazon.
Pa da, nema šta više, to je to. Izašli smo, popilo se, proslavilo se, to je to.
Ne, to baš mi je drago, stvarno, uhvatio sam posle reprizu da gledam i bilo fenomenalno. Zaista, i nadam se su ljudi gledali, da su mogli da uživaju u meču. Teo sam pitanje, je li bio MVP na kraju meča? Ili ko je bio? Pa bio je Andrija Drča, defensivni end koji je napravio taj interception. Ali ne samo zbog toga, mislim, nije ga jedan potez definisao, celu utakmicu je vršio pritisak, imao jedan sek koji čini mi se da nakon tog seka quarterback Kragujevca više nije igrao na istom nivou. Došao mu sa slepe strane, sa leve strane, nije ga uopšte vidio niti očekivao, sravnio ga je sa zemljom i ovaj momak nakon toga je bio dosta obazriviji, čak i kad je trčao, nije trčao, da kažem... Samo poznanjem, ako što kao...
Da, onako, bio prezniji. Ne mogu da... Momak je sjajan igrač i definitivno najbolji igrač u našoj ligi je Isaiah Green, quarterback Wild Borsa, mislim bio ove sezone, ali osjetila se promena u njegovoj igri nakon tog seka. Tako da to, uz ceo taj pritisak koji je onako baš bio jak na toj utakmici, koji da kažem nije bio baš karakterističan za nas tokom cele sezone, i taj finalni, da kažem, čin meča sa interceptionom dok lopta pada, on se baca na nju, mislim stvarno, fenomenalno.
Mislio sam zapravo da je MVP bio wide receiver što nosi broj 1, sam vidio neko krunisanje kao posle.
On je bio MVP ligi.
Da, trener Wild Borsa Allen i isto njemu čini se pričali prošli put, da je poprilično talentovan klinac, što je 18 godina. Da,
18-19 godina, tako nešto. 18 možda će napuniti 19 ove godine. Ali da, Petar Bajalica, to ime. Zapamtite to ime.
Nice.
Da, on je bio MVP ligi i sad postoji pravilo da MVP lige ne može da bude stranac, samo domaći igrač, zato što je nagrada taj neki mač, čini mi se svetog vida, koji se predaje igraču i cele godine kod njega do naredne sezone. Cele godine mač stoji kod njega, da. I onako, baš je, mislim, super izgleda taj mač i cijel taj moment je onako fantastičan i to je uvedeno od, ako se ne varam, pre par godina. Da, one sezone pre korone, čini mi se da ta prvi put
19, da.
Da, tad je prvi put dodeljen I onda je tadašnji MVP 2 godine imao kod sebe, pošto nije igrala. Mislim, igrala se 7-7, ali kao to nisu se glasalo za to.
Postrao, to je baš cool. Da li sad ima američki fudbal na našim prostorima tek od septembra, reprezentacije to?
Reprezentacija, utakmice će biti u oktobru, prva protiv Švedske, druga protiv Švajcarske. Protiv Švedske se igra u Švedskoj, u Stokholmu, a Švajcarska će dolaziti u Srbiju, nisam sigurno još uvijek gde se igra. Ima američkog fudbala na, da kažem, omladinskom nivou, juniorska liga kreće krajem septembra, biće neki flag turniri za klince, biće i flag liga za odrasle.
Strava.
Da, ona kreće isto tako u septembru.
Kako se prijavljaš?
Mislim da je sad kasno. Bile su prijave za klubove. Sad ako se klub prijavi, onda igrači mogu da počnu da budu deo klubova, tako da ne znam tačno koliko se prijavilo klubova, ali čini mi se da za tu seniorsku flag ligu ima barem jedno, isto kao u prvoj ligi, 8 do 10 klubova, tako da zanimljivo.
Strava, baš ko nisam znao. Ko znam, može se prijaviti, već zanimljivo.
Ajde, Vanja.
Čekaj, sa pravom loptom klasa?
Da, sa pravom. Samo nemaš kacigu, nemaš shoulder pad, igra se 5-5. Top. I nema kontakta.
Koje su još pravila?
Pa pravila su, ima 4 pokušaja za pola terena.
Dobro.
I 4 za touchdown, ako osvojiš pola terena. Tako da to je to. Znači ukupno možda igraš maksimum akciju od 8, to jest možda imaš drive od 8 akcija maksimalno. Imaju tu još neka pravila kada se približiš 10 yardi od end zone, nema trčanja, mora pasom da se igra. Kontakt nije dozvoljen, ima blitz, ali sa 7 yardi razdaljen od skrimidža. Čisto da se quarterbacku. I quarterback ima 7 sekundi da baci loptu. Quarterback ne može da trči.
To.
Da, on može, ako primi, onaj koji primi loptu od centra, on ne može da trči, ali može se okrenu nazad da baci pasu nazad i onda tom igraču iza daje pravo i da baci pas i da trči. On postaje i trkač i paser.
Strava, nisam na to. Baš.
Zanimljivo je.
Jeste, što je najgore, stvarno ću razmisliti o tome. Bez jebancije. Sad, neke od glavnih vesti jeste da su izašle rang liste. Mi smo to radili u aprilu i maju, pre drafti malo nekoliko pozicija nakon. Sad, ove liste su pravili GM-ovi, funkcioneri, treneri i igrači u NFL-u. ESPN ih izbacio, ali mislim da je poprilično važno da vidimo šta igrači, kao što rekao, treneri i funkcioneri misle koje...
Samo se da te pitam, je to na osnovu za prošlu sezonu ili predviđenje za narednu?
Za prošlu sezonu i kao odmah predviđenje za narednu. Znači, u sklopu onog šta si uradio prošle godine, kako predviđaš šta ćeš da uradiš ove naredne, šta sad, koje dolazi.
Ti si to, znam, ispratio,
malo šokirao sa neke pozicije, iskreno, pričali smo malo pre ovoga kako je Andrews nisko, za mene bar od otkrivanja na 4. mestu, neki su ga čak stavili i na 6, tako mi je to bilo iznenađujuće, jer je čovjek po meni bio i na našoj isto rang listi bio najbolji tight end.
Da.
I to jednoglasno čini da smo ga svi stavili kao broj 1, ti, Jimmy, Srki i ja, tako mi je baš bilo čudno vidim njega na 4. mestu, ali dobro.
Da, pa to je, mislim da kažem, stvar preferencije u smislu, pričamo o 3, može kažemo ajde 4. Mislim, ajde kad smo spomenuli tight endove,
hoćeš prvo njih?
Pa ajde da protočimo kroz tu listu.
Samo da prvom da ih nađem i gde sam ih sad stavio, running backovi, wide receiveri, evo su ih tight endovi. Sad.
Koliko je? Top 5, top 10?
Top 10. Top 10 i onda nabroje, kao što smo mi radili, trojicu, četvoricu koji su bili u nečih top 10, ali nisu na kraju zbog egzaktne matematike.
Kako skopiraju čoveče, znači ne mogu da...
Prvi je George Kittle, koji je najviši rang
Nećeš više od 10 na 1?
Ne, od odmah. Tako je najviše, ne mogu sad spušten dole. Prvi je George Kittle, a najniži rang koji on dobio je broj 3 na 3. mestu. I prošle godine isto bio prvi, tako da George Kittle smo sva četvorica stavili u top 3, čini se da je išlo kod nas Andrews, Kelsey pa Kittle. Ispravno ako greš.
Da, čini se, da.
Drugi je baš Kelsey koji isto najbolji rang mu bio broj 1, najniži broj 4, prošle godine isto drugo mesto. Waller, treći, najviši rang drugi, najniži 5, isto prošle godine treći, to se ja uopšte ne slažem, i onda sad Andrews četvrti, najviši rang drugi, najniži 6, isto prošle godine bio četvrti, pa onda imamo Kyle Pitts 5, Dallas Goedert 6, TJ Hawkinson 7, Dalton Schultz je 8, to mi je bilo zanimljivo iz Dallasa, tight end. Ne znam, ne mogu svetim kod nas koji je bio.
Bio kod nas na top 10, ali si sigurno. Jeste.
Dawson Knox je bio 9 i Hunter Henry 10. Sad neki igrači, Gesicki, Friermuth i Zach Ertz i na Joku su bili van top 10-ih. Da zaokružimo tih 14-15.
Da, pa baš prema što smo krenuli, ti i ja smo pričali o tome, eto, ako kažemo Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews i Waller, Njih četvoricu onako nekako izdvajam jer su stvarno drugačiji od svih ostalih. Mislim da je to samo stvar preferencije koga ćeš da staviš na mesto broj 1. Koga god da staviš nećeš puno pogrešiti. Možda bi za moj ukus najviše pogrešio da je Waller broj 1, jer mislim da je najtanji bloker od svih njih. Nije loš, samo je najtanji
Nama
bloker.
Waller, sad gledam, nije bio top 10.
Pa zašto je propustio pola sezone?
Pa baš zato je neverovatno da je ovdje stavljen u 3.
Nisu oni rangirali prošlu sezonu, oni su rangirali potencijal za sledeću sezonu, koliko te ja razumem.
Rangirali su oba na osnovu prošle sezone, onda potencijal kako će se projektovati za 2022.
Da, znaš, možda su posmatrali sada Raidersi imaju i Adamsa, znaš, za Wallera će to može značiti, ne znam, više meta u crvenoj zoni, više touchdowna, zbog toga rasteretit će ga, moći će da opet igra u nekom punom potencijalu, jer će ekipe morati da se fokusiraju na Devonte Adamsa. Može je to bila logika.
Moguće.
Što se Andrewsa tiče, naredne sezone, on, to je prošle sezone nije igrao celu sa Lamarom. Lamar je bio povređen. Možda i sumnjaju da može da ponovi takvu sezonu.
Ti si ima brutalnu sezonu kao Titan Brian, bio i All Pro i Pro Bowler, sve stvarno je odigrao neverovatno.
Jeste. Znaš, i očekuje se da Baltimore bude zdraviji kao ekipa. Drugo ekipe se navikavaju na to. Znaš, ti kao tight end, Mark Andrews jeste tight end dobar već nekoliko godina. Ali čini mi se da još uvijek nije kao recimo Kelsey toliko dominantan, toliko dugo.
Nije. Potpuno si upravo što toga tiče. Stvarno Kelsey ima 6-7 godina po 1000 yardi, to je nešto što niko nikad nije uradio.
Kao i Gronk. Znaš, i ti kada vidiš dugotrajnost, ti tome moraš da daš prednost. Jer ti od Kelsija već očekuješ.
Da.
A Mark Andrews može biti samo da je ovo bila prošla, da je to bila ta sezona. Da naredni, znaš, ne mora znači će biti loša, ali može imati 700 yardi, recimo.
Da, neće biti na tom nivou, kapirano što hoćeš da kažeš. Ali opet, i Kittle mi deluje kao, pošto je broj 1 na njihovoj listi, najkompletniji tight end.
Jeste, najbolji bloker i najbolji trkač ruta, definitivno.
Imao je neke partije da imao po 200 yardi hvatanja, što je stvarno bilo brutalno. I sad ćemo vidjeti sa Trey Lanceom, koji ima jaču ruku od Jimmy Garoppola, kako će to da deluje?
Pa znaš šta, nije tu stvar toliko ruke, barem u slučaju Kittla. Mislim, ne treba njemu kao previše quarterback sa jakom rukom. Kittle je neko ko je apsolutno igrač šeme, u smislu ti možeš napraviti takvu šemu da ga staviš bilo gde, on može da bude produktivan. Znaš, i akcije 49ersa su takve. Oni ne igraju na jednog čoveka, oni igraju na ceo tim. Sad mi kažemo Debo Samuel. Da, ali Debo iz backfielda, Debo iz motiona, Debo kao receiver. To nije samo jedan čovek. Mislim, to je naš Debo sa različitih pozicija. Tako. Šta bi značilo ekipa koja se ostane jednog čoveka? Cleveland Browns. Imaš Nika Čaba i samo trči, znaš da je on konstantan.
Dodao bi i Čab i Hunt.
Ali nema niko njih hvatanja, niko njih nije brutalni hvatač, što znaš da je zapravo igra po zemlji. Oni su ekipa koja trči. 49ersi onako prave jedan miks, nekako na prvi pogled bih rekao da su bar jedno 55, može i 60% run first ekipa.
PS još Trey Lance će moći i može to da radi, da iz PES, iz RPO-a i on uzme loptu i da trči.
Tako je.
Prosto ima te fizičke predispozicije.
Kittla smo videli opet sa jednim, da kažemo, limitiranim quarterbackom kao što je Garoppolo.
Jeste.
I za sad funkcioniše jako dobro. Sa Trey Lanceom, ako se pokaže da je bolje od Garoppola, to može da bude možda još samo bolje. A i druga stvar, Kittle će na jednoj utakmici da radi onaj prljavi posao i da pravi one blokove koje niko osim ofenzivne linije ne voli da pravi i onda će se na nekom screenu odvojiti, pregaziti trojicu i postići touchdown. Znaš, to je jako retko. Kelsey to ne radi. Kelsey nije toliko dominantan bloker, na primjer. Mark Andrews je odličan bloker. Mislim, tu nema šta, ali za moj ukus Kittle je bloker broj 1 kada pričamo.
Sam misli na levoj strani Kittle i Williams. Da blokiraju levi tackle 49ers.
Da.
Znaš koji je to pakao za odbrane igrače za edge rusher?
To je pakao za ceo tim, svih 11.
Bukvalno. Prema što ostaje, Srđane, zatvori ta vrata i
otvori ova.
Možeš, praviš, može i to, da. Hvala.
Molim te, da. Već je 30 noću.
Da, pa sam ne pakao ovaj posljednji par dana. Da se vratim, što sam rekao edge rusher i da krenut ćemo sa njihovom listom, to je nastavit ćemo s listom. Prvi, naravno, na listi je TJ Watt, koji je bio i defanzivni igrač i sve stvarno je očekivano, što negdje čak kod nekih je bio rangiran kao treći najbolji. Oni to rade highest ranking first, lowest ranking third. Nakon njega idemo Myles Garrett, što je isto očekivano, koji je imao podjednako dominantnu sezonu. Zatim Nick Bosa na poziciji broj 3, zatim Joey Bosa na poziciji 4, Max Crosby je 5 na njihovoj listi, Von Miller 6, koji je u play-offu i poslednjih nekoliko meča u regularnoj sezoni stvarno pokazao zašto je čovjek i Hall of Fame igrač. Chandler Jones je 7, Brian Burns iz Carolina Panthersa 8, Khalil Mack je 9, Cameron Jordan 10 i sad ima nekoliko igrača, Trey Hendrickson, Chase Young, Daniel Hunter, Shaquille Barrett koji su tako top 14-15.
Da, mi Chase-a smo eliminisali, čovjek ni igrao nijedan meč.
Tako je.
Ne, igrao je na početku.
Pa igrao na početku, ali se je povredio relativno brzo. Da li neki od ovih imena je onako posebno sad istakao?
Pa ne, stvarno mislim da su svi su tu dobri. Sviđa mi se što je Burns na toj listi, jer mislim da apsolutno zaslužuje.
Burns je mlad, ima 24 godine samo.
Ali zaslužuje da bude tu jer i veliki je progres napravio u relativno kratkom vremenu. I to nije uopšte lako u NFL-u. Tako da, pogotovo što on igra za Karolinu, tako 2 puta godišnje igra protiv ofenzivne linije Saintsa, protiv Bucksa, to su sve dobre ofenzivne linije, realno. Tako da to samo govori o tome da, znaš, možda imamo nešto posebno.
Pa mislim da ima stvarno. Karolina kaže, ja sam mislio Burns ima 26-7 godina, sad kad sam prošao listu piše age 24, tako da mislim da ga tek čekaju zapravo najbolje godine. Još ako Karolina može da stvori neku jaku defensivnu liniju, što su imali prošle godine front 7 poprilično dobar, ali je vremeno popustio što napad nije mogao da ostane na terenu i onda oni izmoreni konstantno su bili na terenu i videlo se da prosto nijedna odbrana to ne može da izdrži.
Da, pa dobro, da Karolina ima neke svoje interne probleme, što se kaže. Ali ne znam, ovako na prvi pogled, sad kad kažeš, nema mi puno iznenađenja tu u toj listi.
Nema.
Kako se tebi čini?
Pa isto, manje više nema, stvarno, Cameron Jordan mi možda malo niži, on je po njima na 10. mestu, mi smo ga stavili, 1, 2, 6.
Da.
Mi smo stavili na poziciji broj 6, mi smo Joey Bosu spustili na 7, oni stavili na 4. Sad kapiram, pošto je to poređenje prošle sezone i gledanje kao ovoj novoj, su vidjeli, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, to će biti ubitančan tandem.
Da.
Zato i Khalil Mack realno ne zaslužuje, možda sad bude u top 10 zbog prošle godine, ali u novom sistemu, u boljem definitivnom timu.
Potencijal izgleda dobro, mislim, za narednu sezonu.
Da. Tako da nema nekih iznenađenja, se možemo preći odmah na defensivne teklove, gde je prvi naravno Aaron Donald, to je jedini jednoglasni koji je svima na prvom mestu. Nema šta dalje dodajemo.
Lowest rank 1.
Da, bukvalno to piše. Ne, mislim, i očekujem, stvarno ja ne znam koji bi trener, igrač, funkcioner stavio da nije. Nemaš koga stavio.
Možda ovi iz Bengalsa, pošto su igrali Super Bowl, izgubili.
Možda Joe Burrow ga stavio zbog poslednje akcije. Drugi je Jeffrey Simmons. To je zanimljivo, zato što Chris Jones je 3. iz Kansas City Chiefsa, DeForest Buckner 4. a Cameron Hayward 5. Meni Hayward malo niži, iako je dominantni, ali opet ta četvorica nakon Aaron Donalda stvarno su male razlike. To je sve što si ti rekao, šta ti se više sviđa kod nekog igrača.
Da, uvijek je tako, mislim, po meni kada gledamo top 10 u NFL-u. Stvarno su top 5 definitivno. Nakon toga, možda ima malo više prostora za diskusiju, ali mi pričamo o 10 najboljih unutrašnjih igrača defensivne linije, ima ih svaka ekipa po 2 startera. Znači, pool je 64 i mi treba izaberemo šestinu, skoro sedminu od toga. Mislim, nije lako, pričamo samo o starterima.
Da.
I mislim da su tu svi igrači, top, krem de la krem.
Posle su Kenny Clark na 6. Vita Vea 7. Arik Armstead i San Francisco 49ers 8. Grady Jarrett 9. To mi se sviđa zato što je Grady Jarrett u loše Atlante, jer je stvarno odbrana katastrofa. On i cornerback AJ Terrell su jedine svetle tačke to odbrane. I na kraju 10. pozicije Jonathan Allen iz Washington Commandersa. Ima tu Leonard Williams, Javon, niko iz Eaglesa, to mi zanimljivo, nije zapravo top 10. Spomenut je Hargrave, spomenut je i Fletcher Cox, ali niko nije u top 10.
Hargrave je imao veliki problema oko zaustavljanja trčanja.
Jeste, ali Fletcher Cox to zapravo popunjavao.
Jeste, to je Fletcher Cox popunjavao, slažem se. Ali šta znam, vjerojatno ga video na zalasku karijere, da je možda još jedna sezona tu za njega i da posle toga ide u penziju.
Pa dobro, draftovali su zamenu.
Da.
Doveli su Medveda, tako da...
Tako je.
Mislim, ono što sam rekao i pre drafta i posle drafta, ja stvarno mislim da će Eagles i ove godine biti ubedljivo najbolji u diviziji.
Polako, mora se skockaju tu stvari.
Jasno, sve mi jasno, mislim da je najveći znak pitanja posle quarterbacka i Jalen Hurts, da jeste Dak Prescott bolji, ali ako pogledaš ostatak rostera, stvarno Philadelphia Eagles imaju možda top 3, top 4 po talentu u NFC-u.
Da, dobro, ne mora uvek ni da pobedi bolji quarterback. Mislim, Nick Foles je pobedio Tom Brady.
Jeste.
Igrao je Super Bowl. U tom jednom meču tu noć ga je pobedio i to je sve što Philly treba. Kad dođemo u play-off, da to veče neko za blistu.
Tako je, pa evo kako se sad mislao mozak Joe Flacco. Zato je to onaj play-off run da izdominirao 3 meča koliko imao 13 touchdownova, 2 presečene lopte i eto ti.
Da.
Eli Manning, pa da, Eli Manning.
Eli je dugo sijao, cijela karijera, nije baš.
Dobro, u play-offu sija. Nije sad u regularnoj sezoni imao je godine gde ima preko 20 presečenih lopte.
Ja sam ga jednom imao u fantasy futbol, odličan igrač. Da ga imaš, veruj mi, odličan igrač. Uopšte nije ta priča kao ono, samo što je igrao ružan fudbal, znaš.
A nije, kad si ga imao, koje godine?
Nemam pojma, stvarno.
To je baš stavno, mora da je bilo.
Veruj mi, sad razmišljam da li prošla bila 19 ili 20, nemam pojma koje godine.
Nije igrao 19 ili 20.
Ne, sad da me pitaš koja je bila prošla godina, ja bih stao da razmišljam da je 19 ili 20, bila je 21, razumeš?
Da.
Tako da nisam s godinama dobar uopšte. Bio je dobar, bio je konstantan i onda ti daje jednu utakmicu sa 38 poena. I Odell je imao lupan 20.
Kaže, ja to pričam, po meni je Odell njemu produžio karijeru.
A to je bilo uzajamno.
Pa dobro, da, ali opet mislim da nisu draftovali Odella da bi možda Eli završio ranije karijeru. Je stvarno bilo mučenje i Giantsi i dan danas se muče, to je prosto od Superbola. Nije, ne daleko od toga, ali od Superbola stvarno Giantsi otišli su jednom u playoff i to seća se protiv Green Bay Packers su igrali u divizijskoj rundi. Čuvena ona slika Odella na brodu u Majamiju nedelju dana pre toga.
Da.
I onda što se desilo šamar u Green Bayu.
Kući.
Da. Tako da nisu imali Giantsi stvarno baš težak period.
Šta kaže dalje lista?
To je to za defensivne teklove. Možemo pređemo na unutrašnje linebackere. Prvi je Darius Leonard. Mislim da je tu bilo dosta nedoumica, zašto kod nekih
šesti. Pa dobro i nama je.
Pa jeste, kod nekih je najniže rangiran 6. poziciji Leonard.
Pa dobro, okej.
Sad zavisi, drugi je Micah Parsons, gde je negde 10. najniže rangiran. Znači najviše prvo mesto, najniže 10.
Da, za Micah Parsons je ono pitanje koje mi što smo imali, gde ga staviš?
Jeste.
Dalje je edge rusher, dalje je linebacker, inside, znaš, sad on je nominalno inside linebacker, ali i Aaron Donald je godinama nominalno bio defensivni end, a igra unutra.
Da.
Tako da,
treći je Fred Warner, koji isto najviša pozicija broja, najniža van top 10. Ja zato sam i rekao, sam ubeđen da stvarno dosta trenera, čak neki igrači i funkcioneri ne prate ostale mečeve. Ne prate mečeve ekipa protiv kojih ne moraju da igraju u toj sezoni. Jer ti stvarno, ja nemam ni jedno objašnjenja, razumno ti staviš Fred Warner van top 10.
Jeste, ali znaš kako to ide?
Samo iz tog razloga, jer nema mi logike.
Mi ne igramo protiv 49ers.
Pa da.
Ali igramo protiv Packersa koji su igrali protiv 49ers. Ja gledam snimak Packersa i vidim ko je 52 čovječ. Šta radi? Ko je lik je? Fred Warner. Okej. Znaš, vidi kakav igrač. To je to. Hoće ti kažemo, ne mora eksplicitno da igra protiv te ekipe. Ali gledaš, dok spremajući se za drugu ekipu, mora da vidi te igre. Mora da vidi sve igrače u ligi. Verujem.
Jimmy, mi nismo imali Warnera ispod top 4.
Pa dobro, okej, zato smo mi ovde, a oni su egzekutivi. Mislim, kako razumeš? Sad, zato on je vlasnik neke kluba, a mi smo ovde i pričamo o njemu, razumeš? Ja mislim da on nema podcast o nama.
Pa nema, ali stvarno, ovo stvarno je dokaz da istinski ne prate.
Nije, NFL se promenio, to je prva stvar. Ti više nemaš prototip linebackera. Šta je prototip linebackera?
Devin White.
Pa meni nije, na primjer. Meni nije prototip.
Mislim, on je sad sledeći četvrti, pa mi zato...
Ne, okej, meni recimo nije. Znaš, sad odrade 10 ljudi, svako bi rekao nekog svog prototipa. Prototip, neko bi rekao Ray Lewis. Živeo bi dalje u 2000. godine, rekao bi Ray Lewis.
Za današnju igru, iskreno... za današnju igru, iskreno, mislim da je Fred Warner ili Darius Leonard.
Pa vidiš, nemaš čak ni jednog, znaš.
Neko od njih dvojica.
To ti kažem, a njih dvojica nisu uopšte blizu. Leonard je viši, ako se ne varam.
Ne, mislim da je Warner viši. Da je Warner 6-3, da je Leonard 6-1. Sad ću broj...
Ali u svakom slučaju da kažemo ono, šta možeš da povučeš kao njihovo ono zajedničku
pokrivanje tight endova, zaustavljanje
za Mike
igre,
linebacker
trčanje.
To nije toliko bitno. Znači, ti ne igraš često 1-1 sa tight endom. Mislim, super je ako znaš, ali nije presudnost. Ja ne bi nikad izabrao linebackera koji igra Mike-a, ne ume da zaustavi trčanje, pokriva tight enda. Mislim, meni taj nije prototip, iskreno. Ne kažem da je to neko od njih, ali hoću da ti kažem, fudbal se danas toliko promenio.
Slično su građe oni, Darius Leonard. Ovo je 6-3, ovo je 6-2. 188 Leonard, 191 Fred Warner. Eto sad već.
Mnogo traži. Nešto mi u glavi da su radiš ti, ali nema veze.
104, ne isto kilaž.
Dobro, super.
Znači, slični su vrlo i taj prototip, nešto smo pričali, što izlazi posljednjih par godina. Isaiah Simmons je taj tip.
A Isaiah Simmons igrao cornerbacka na koledžu.
Igrao sve.
Pa to ti kažem, znaš.
Ali to se izgleda traži. Jedino koji iskače je Tremaine Edmonds koji ima 6'5", ima 115 kila i gazi sve.
Ja se slažem da se to traži, ali gde je Tremaine Edmonds na toj listi?
Sad ću pogledati. Odlično pitanje. Samo da nastavim listom, Devin White, isti slučaj kao sa Fred Warrenom. Prvi, najniži van top 10.
Da.
Ne znam, to mi se ono objašnjava. Raquan Smith je top 5, mi ga nismo imali top 10. To možda je naša greška, realno je trebao da bude top 10.
Dobro, znaš koja je tu stvar?
Ali neko ga rangirao kao broj 1.
Jasno, ali znaš zašto ga neko rangirao kao broj 1? Ja sam siguran da su oni uzeli u obzir sve. Raquan Smith kao ne samo prošla sezona, nego i potencijal i šta je sve uradio do sada i šta nam to govori gde može da bude naredne godine. Mi to nismo, mi smo se izolovali isključivo na prošlu sezonu.
Yes.
I to je bilo to. Znači, da kažem, različit je tip skale koji je, o kojoj pričamo.
Raquan Smith je ovaj niži linebacker. On ne 6'1", malo taj fazon. On je taj malo, da kažemo, se vratimo na 0. godine 2000, taj tip linebackera. 6 je Demario Davis, koji je isto najviši top 2, u drugi zapravo van top 10 je najviši.
A svi su ti ostali biti van top 10?
Hoće Tremaine
Edmonds. Ako je broj 3 van
7.
top 10?
Da, to je nevjerovatno da petorica linebackera imaš koji su rangirani kao broj 1. Iako realno, ja stvarno ne mogu da vidim Raquan Smitha da bude projektovan za sledeću sezonu, kako god, da bude najbolji linebacker. Prvo u timu je Chicago Bearsa koji vrlo vratno će i ovaj edge rusher Floyd, čini mi se ispravim ako grešim.
Mislim da jeste.
Da ode. Otišao Kim Hicks, otišao Khalil Mack, znači po starteru defensivno nisu otišli. Ti stvarno misliš da će on moći da bude, i to jeste, mislim, takav je, prosto tako je kako je, da ti si dobar koliko su tvoji saigrači pored tebe, a Chicago Bears trenutno u odbrani nije to. Nemaš sad niko da me ubedi da će Raquan Smith biti najbolji linebacker sledeće godine.
Pa taj neko očigledno misli. Mislim, čemu je dobro. Znaš, to je možda jedna ekipa mu dala. Jedan čovjek.
Ne, jeste, jedan.
Možda ga zna lično, možda su kućni prijatelji. Pa ne, mislim, ozbiljno ti kažem. Otko znaš.
Ne, jeste, pravo, znam na što misliš.
Šta nekog tamo briga? Bili drugari na koledžu ili su završili isti koledž, znaš.
7. je Edmonds, 8. je Bobby Wagner, 9. je Lavonte David i 10. je Jordan Brooks iz Seattle Seahawks. To mi je zanimljivo, mi nismo imali uopšte Jordan Brooks ni na vidiku. Mislim,
možda top 15. Oni znaju nešto što mi ne znam za sledeću sezonu.
Moguće, jer ovo je
Bobby Wagner je otišao.
Da, ovo je bila druga sezona Brooksa, sad ide na 3. ove godine, to ko zna, možda stvarno iskoči. Nekima je bio u top 5, kao highest ranking je bio 5. Tako da ko zna, i posle imamo naravno Eric Hendricks, Devondre Campbell. Viš, Devondre Campbell
nije bio uopšte.
Bio prošle godine All Pro.
Da.
I realno je u odbrani Green Bay koja je prepuna zvezda u sve 3 linije. Defanzivna, linebacker i secondary.
Jeste, ali opet kažem, znaš, stvar je skale, šta tražiš.
Jeste, pa da,
ja i dalje ne razumem, gledamo prošlu sezonu i pravimo projekcije za sledeću. Znači, se praviš projekcije za sledeću. Zašto gledaš samo prošlu sezonu? Gledaj karijeru, onda mislim, ne znam.
Ako bi gledali karijeru, onda bi Bobby Wagner bi trebao bude broj 1.
Pa ne bi, zašto sad ima 30 i koliko godina.
Pa to, mislim da je stvarno kombinacija svega.
Kad pada nečiji performans i to.
Ne znam kako su uzimali, samo si piše da su, kažete, funkcioneri, treneri i igrači birali. Da. Koja je bila skala za biranje, to već ne znam. Možemo pređem linebackera da je prvi Jalen Ramsey.
Cornerbacker.
Da,
cornerbacker.
Znaš što neko?
Linebacker si.
Pardon, cornerbackovi, Jalen Ramsey.
Da.
Najniže 7. čak. Znači neko je bio i van top 5.
Znači bit će tu šareno onda ako je on.
Pa bit će zašto je Marshawn Lattimore drugi, najviši prvo mesto, najniže 9.
Da.
Zatim Jair Alexander koji je propustio dobar deo sezone, ali je opet bio spektakularan dok je igrao. Najviše drugo mesto, najniže 10, ovde je 3. Xavier Howard je 4, gde nekima je bio prvi.
Zanimljivo.
A to je ta egzaktna matematika zapravo gde...
Da. Pitajte mene kako.
Da. JC Jackson je 5. Nekima je bio van top 10. Da. Kao najniži. Tako da stvarno ima šarenoliko je. Denzel Ward je 6. Patrick Surtain drugi iz Denver Broncosa je 7. Marlon Humphrey je 8. koji je propustio sezonu, ali očigledno je projekcija za 2022. AJ Terrell iz Atlante koji je bio po meni najbolji corner prošle godine 9. i 10. Trevon Diggs.
Da. Dobro, zanimljivo. Mislim, to za Diggsa razumem. Dosta rizika.
Previše jardi dopušteno.
Da, pa to. previše rizikovao zbog intersepšona i okej.
Viš, Tredavious White koji se isto povredio nije na listi. On je ono kao od 11 do 15. A Marlon Humphrey, to mi opet nesvatljivo. Meni je i kad su obojica zdravi, Tredavious White ipak shutdown cornerback.
Slažem se. Meni isto izabrao bi ga pre Marlona Humphreya, ali okej.
Slay je isto tu i za nju Carlton Davis koji ja stvarno mislim da nije to.
To je neko dao pare za to. Da on bude...
Ne znam, stvarno ne znam. I pričali smo i na početku prethodne sezoni Tokijom gde je secondary Tampe baš bušan.
Ja se sjećam samo Davis koliko samo grešaka imao.
Pa da. I on je recimo u top 15.
Da.
Zato i to i sad ti kažem, ne verujem da stvarno ljudi toliko gledaju tape.
Nemoguće, ti skauti su Vanja plaćeni da gledaju.
Ali kako onda ovako da su nekonstantne liste? Ne kažem da mi znamo bolje, da se razumemo, ali mi pratimo skoro svaki meč, to je sve stoji i koristimo i analitiku i tako.
Ali evo sad pitanje broj 1, kako Jamarcus Russell pik broj 1 na draftu? Znaš, ajde tolike enigme, Trent Richardson, top.
Dominirao na koleđu.
Šta kažeš?
Dominirao na koleđu.
Pa znam, ali šta gledaš kao scout, mislim, pričaš sa njim, pitaš ga
pa to je već drugo.
Kako razmišlja.
Da, to ne znam. Kaže, brojke i kako igra na koleđu, pogotovo
pa znam, ali ne možeš ne možeš stvar koja se tiče ljudi da posmatraš nehumano, u smislu, a samo ću gledam brojke i koleđe, moraš da vidiš kakav je to čovek, šta ga motiviš i ostalo. Tako da, nemam pojma,
Zar nije za Jamarcus, izvim što prekrenja priča da mu je neki tim dao tape, playbook?
Raidersi.
Jel da?
Ne, poslali su mu, počeli su sumnjiti da on ne gleda uopšte snimke koje mu oni šalju. I onda su mu poslali CD-ove potpuno prazne, ništa nije bilo na njima. I pitali su ga da li je gledao Blitz pick-up setove, on je rekao, gledao sam. I oni šta znaju da su napravili problem na draftu.
Neka je bila neka priča isto, ne znam da li je za njega za nekog drugog pre drafta, da je dobio playbook i na kraju playbooka se nalazio $100. I pitali su ga da li si prelistao playbook do kraja, kaže da, kao ja sam kao. I? Kao pa ništa, kao sve okej. Znajući da zapravo nije ni pročitao playbook, ništa, jer je $100, on je vratio playbook njima, $100 je bilo i dalje tu.
Da, možda je bio kao s hrišćanske porodice. Ko je iz hrišćanske porodice, on nije moja.
Da. Da prođemo na brzinu safety, Justin Simmons je prvi iz Denver Broncosa, Minka Fitzpatrick je drugi, mi Minku nismo imali. Mislim da smo to baš pogrešili.
Ne znam. Ne mogu se
setiti. Se da nismo na kraju imali Fitzpatrick. Nismo, da. Ne znam zbog kog razloga. To smo baš komentarisali da smo tu baš pogrešili. Iz nekog razloga totalno mi je...
Davno je to bilo, Vanja.
Yes.
Meni je sreda daleko, a ne Minka Fitzpatrick.
A ti ostao intervju sa Tavecchiom u glavi.
Yes.
To je bio genijalno.
Yes.
Poslušajte, saslušali stvarno intervju, bio prelep.
Da, definitivno. Poslušajte ljudi, mislim, pustit ćemo ga za 20 minuta. Da. Max. Đorđo Tavekio, moj omiljen NFL igrač.
Puhova, kako se to neče, nevjerovatne stvarno priče.
Da.
Kevin Byard je treći, iz Tennessee, Derwin James je četvrti, Buda Baker peti, Jesse Bates šesti, koji inače je rekao da će da hold outuje ako ne dobije novi ugovor i da vrlo vratno neće biti ni na trening kampu koji počinje za nedelju dana, čini mi se, za većinu ekipa, za ostatak ekipa počinje za 10 dana, tako će vidjeti tu situaciju kako će Bengalsi da reše. Ja mislim da je on jedan od ključnih igrača u odbrani da moraju da ga long term potpišu.
Slažem se, mislim to bi bilo onako super priča da zadrže tu ekipu, bar te zvezde i te igrače koji su onako ključni i bitni.
Pa svoje igrače ti si ga draftovao.
Da.
To stvarno mogu skinem kapu Jerry Jonesu, on svoje igrače čuva. I plati ih, i nekad ih plati i više nego što treba, ali svoje igrače su one koje je Dallas draftovao, on ih čuva i produžuje mu ugovore. 7. Harrison Smith, 8. Marcus Williams, novi član Baltimore Ravensa, 9. Anton Winfield Jr. iz Tampe i 10. Jamal Adams. Da, nama je Adams mnogo visoko.
Adams?
Ne, Adamsa nismo imali zapravo.
Nema razloga da bude to 10.
Da, viš.
Mislim, ako gledamo samo prošlu sezonu što mi jesmo.
Da.
Oni verovatno...
I sad i projekcija za novu, mislim, ja ne znam, naša će da liči odbrana Seattle.
Da, to
ali viš, ako je Jordan Brooks...
Da, očigledno predviđaju nešto dobro u odbrani Seattle.
Kad smo kod Seattle, malo digresije, priča se da bi oni tradeovali za Jimmy Garoppolo. Tako bi to bilo zanimljivo i može čak i
Šta daj, Drew Locka? Reci koja bi to selitba bila.
Ne bi, ne.
Se oba Drewa Locka. Knjiga se napiše o tome.
Da, bravo.
U 2 meseca 3 kuće.
Da.
Kako sam proputao Ameriku za 90 dana.
I ništa i Infinity Lighthouse da izda tu knjigu.
Da.
Nakon dinastije.
Može, realno. Šalim se, stvarno nisam čuo za to.
Ne, da, ali ja da San Francisco tražio bi makar drugog pika iz druge ili treće runde.
Drew Lock?
Mislim da neće Drew Lock.
Ko je pik bio Drew Lock?
Druga runda.
Oni traže treću. Drew Lock i da još da im daju igrača jednog. Da im daju Jimmya Garoppolo i još jednog igrača. Ali realno
mislim da John Lynch je pošto malo je...
Joe Lynch zna da ne ume da napravi quarterback.
Da.
Ne, izvinjam se.
To je John Elway.
Da, John Elway. Da.
I ne znam, neko...
Pa dobro, nije Lynch, koga je quarterback napravi? Garoppolo, šta nije? Oni su ga uzeli.
Nije, oni su ga draftovali. Pa dobro, nije on sad toliko ostao. Pa da.
Nisu ga ni draftovali.
Ne, draftovali. Ne, nisu, oni samo tradovali za njega.
Da.
Nisu oni još...
Ko je bio pre toga? Pre Jimmya?
Alex Smith.
Ma nije bio Alex Smith.
Nije baš odmah, ali ne znam. Ko? CJ Better. A bilo ona... Da, i Malec.
Pa sve su ratosiljali s toga.
Ali dobro, sve to neka treća, četvrta runda.
Da, pa da.
Trey Lance je bio. Drugo, pa...
Sad će baš da im koja runda.
Baš pogledaj. Ali ne, ovaj prvi quarterback koliko su birali u prvoj rundi, Kyle Shanahan i John Lynch, tako da im je otek prvi, što se sa te strane tiče, ali mislim ako veruju da je Trey Lance spreman da će uzmi što više možeš za Jimmy Garoppolo. Jer nema smisla da ti bude na rosteru on. Ako Trey Lance spreman, nek igra.
Pik drugi runde.
To ti kažem.
Prvo je 42 na draftu.
Da. Znam se da je 40-50. Nisam bio siguran.
Čoveč.
Kakav... Ne znam, vidjet ćemo u Seattle.
Ne, mislim Seattle neće da ga daje sa šalim, ali mislim...
Ne, neće sigurno. Neće ga i ovih teti, vratno će bi tražiti neku pika iz neke runde, ali vidjet ćemo. Jer Jimmy Garoppolo jedini je ostao slobodan quarterback, ali zapravo da nema... Sem Seattle nema tima koji bi realno sada tradeo, sem ako se neki starter ne povredi.
Slažem se. Mada i ako se povredi starter, sumnjam da bi neko baš tradeo. Mada zavisi to koliko šanse sebi predviđaju za uspeh. Jer Jimmy Garoppolo bi mogao da dođe u ekipu koja ima potencijal za play-off i koja se bori za play-off, a povredi se startni quarterback.
Pa to bi bio Coltsi. I to bi onda Coltsima bio 7. quarterback u 5 godina.
Znaš.
Pa da, dobro, Kirk Cousins se ne povređuje.
Da, kažem, kada bi se tako nešto desilo. Mislim, po meni bilo koja playoff ekipa bi mogla da uzme Jimmy G. Jer čovjek ima u svom CV-u Super Bowl i finale konferencije.
Da, igrao je 2 finala konferencije, jedan Super Bowl, mislim, malo li?
Pa nije malo uopšte.
Ofenzivna linija, to je zapravo unutrašnjost. Prvi je Quentin Nelson, guard. Mislim da je to stvarno i očekivano. Drugi je Zach Martin isto, koji je jedan najbolji garda u poslednjih 6-7 godina. Brandon Sheriff i sad, koji je prešao u Jackson i Jaguars je treći. Četvrti je Joe Tooney iz Kansas City-a. Peti je Joel Bitonio iz Cleveland Brownsa. Šesti je Ryan Jensen, centar. Ovo su miksli kao mi, centar, pozicija centra garda. Za nju da je Jensen najbolji rangirani centar. On je šesti. Jenkins bukvalno je smešten kao ofanzivna linija, pošto igra i levog tekla prošle godine, dok se nije povredio, ali uglavnom igra Srki ispravi me levog garda. On je na poziciji broj 7, Jason Kelsey je poziciji 8 kao centar, Wyatt Teller na poziciji garda, još jedan iz Cleveland Brownsa je 9 i 10 je Corey Linsley, centar Chargers. Toko su ove listi ima tu Ryan Kelly, centar.
Kad spojiš dve pozicije, lista izgleda fantastično, mislim.
Izgleda bolje. Zanimljiv Creed Humphrey koji je kao rookie centar Kansas City Chiefs stvarno imao neverovatno.
Jeste, ali baš polako. Da idemo konzistentnost. Ja verujem da će toga biti, ali samo kažem, prva sezona je.
Quarterbackove.
Ali imamo ofenzivne teklove?
Imam.
Ok, ajde prvo quarterbackove.
Sad ću probati da ih nađem.
Ili ćeš teklove ofenzivne?
Aj quarterbackove, sam da vidim gde sam stavio teklove. Pošto mi idemo ako bukvalno suza po redu. Jer su ofenzivne teklovi listi izašla juče, oni su bili poslednji.
Aha. Dobro.
Mogu ti kažem da je Trent Williams prvi ko je on.
Mislim, no-brainer, realno.
Možda pogledaš ko je prvi quarterback.
Ko je prvi quarterback?
Da, po njihovim.
Patrick Mahomes.
Nije.
Pa neću kažem Tom Brady.
Nije.
Zašto kapiram da nije. A čini si tako razočaran, Aaron Rodgers, ne znam.
Jeste.
A što se razočaran?
Nisam razočaran. Aaron Rodgers je najbolji rangiran quarterback, nekima je bio najniži 5. Što je razumljivo, 2 godine za redom si MVP. I malo mi je čudno što je prvi u smislu, ako gledamo 22. neće biti Davante Adamsa tu. Sad je oni da vrednuju više sposobnost Rodgersa da pravi wide receivere nego što je imao uticaj Adamsov igra, koji jeste najbolji hvatač i na listi je ovde kao receiver broj 1. Tako sa te strane samo čudno. Iskreno očekivao sam da će biti ili Mahomes, ili čak Josh Allen, ili Tom Brady.
Dobro, ali Mahomes imao dosta slabosti u svojoj igri početkom sezone. Sjećaš se?
Yes,
dosta nepreciznih paseva, bespotrebno jurnjava po terenu, bežanje uz neke diskutabilne odluke, a Rodgers osim bukvalno prve utakmice nije posle toga imao loše utakmice.
Sam u play-offu posle. Da, u play-offu, u play-offu jeste i to je bilo utakmica, mislim, definitivno Rodgers igra slabije u play-offu nego što igra u regularnoj sezoni. To možemo da se složimo, stvarno, od Superbola kada je svoje 7-9, to je
da, ali opet 16 utakmice u play-offu od Superbola.
Da, dosta, prilično. Treći je Josh Allen, što mi ima smisla, i onda zatim je četvrti Tom Brady, a peti je Joe Burrow. Dobro, okej. To mi je zanimljivo bilo da nekima je čak Joe Burrow bio van top 10.
To se, kako se to kaže, zloslutnici.
Da. Matthew Stafford je šesti koji isto nekima bio van top 10.
Dobro, to mogu da zamislim.
Sedmi je Justin Herbert, isti slučaj. Najniža pozicija je bila top 10. Osmi je Russell Wilson. Deveti je Deshaun Watson koji mi ne znamo da li će da igra ili ne.
Da, verovatno neće.
Koji i dalje stoji, ništa još NFL nije rekao, to je pre svega Roger Goodell šta se dešava. 10 je Dak Prescott. Da.
Dobro, dobre brojke, mislim.
Jeste, oborio rekord Dallas Cowboys po broju touchdownova u jednoj sezoni, sve to stoji. Da sad, ko nije u top 10? Lamar Jackson.
Carson Wentz. To znamo sigurno, samo konstatujem.
Znaš se, to sada.
To znamo sigurno, Nikola, da konstatujemo. Da znaju ljudi, s neko ne nada možda.
Derek Carr isto nije.
Dobro.
Kyler Murray isto nije.
Derek Carr je imao dosta slabosti. Kao i Kyler Murray. Pa svi imaju, svi su oni, znaš.
Jesu, ali kolika razlika između, eto, nabrao sam, Carr, Lamar, Jackson, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott.
Meni je Cousins tu najbolja opcija, da budem iskren.
Meni.
Najkonstantniji.
Kad bi njih petoricu sad ovako poređali, meni bi Cousins bio prvi.
Da, zato što znam šta ću dobiti od njega sigurno svaki put. Da. Od Daka ne znam.
Istina, poslednjih 11 mečeva stvarno je igrao, ne mogu da zaboravim onu nulu što ima u Denveru.
Da.
I protiv Chiefsa isto, ja ne znam koliko je poena imao, da li 10, ispravite ako rešim komentarima, ali bio apsolutno grozan. Do poslednje četvrtine stvarno to izgledalo grozno.
Bio bi mi na mestu broj 2 Prescott. Ali bih Cousinsu dao prednost kad tu listu gledamo. Onda bi mi Carr bio i Kyler mi na poslednje mesto. Meni Kyler Murray, ne znam, nema mi... Ok, Lamara sam izostavio, jel?
Da.
Lamar mi bio onda treći. Ipak, ono što on može da uradi, Derek Carr ne može. Mislim.
Istina. I predvodio svoj tim u play-off. I videli smo Baltimore prošle godine kad on ne igra, ne može da pobedi. Teo sam baš da te pitam, Kyler Murray ili Lamar?
Lamar, bez razmišljanja. Kyler Murray, ja sam pričao pre par emisija limite Lamara Jacksona i dalje mislim da je to tačno. Ali, kako se zove, Kyler Murray imaš veće limite. Znači, to je ono...
Da je stvarno visina najveći problem. Bukvalno visina, on je 178 visok, ako mislim da jeste toliko. Da li je to zapravo najveći problem? Koliko god to glupo možda zvuči, ali realno 178.
To je koliko, 6-0?
Ne, to je 5-11. Ako je to, a mislim da je 175 zapravo. Nije ni važno. Između 5-10, 5-11 je Kyler Murray. I ti sad kad poređaš ofanzivnu liniju, to stvarno nema smisla. Ima smisla. On ne može, on jeste ima 69,2% uspešnosti kompletnog dodavanja. Neverovatno. Ali smo videli zbog te male građe, sitnije građe, da se povredi. Da prosto nije isti igrač kad se sezona privodi kraju.
Da, to definitivno. To definitivno. I zbog toga, znaš, važnije mi je kako ćeš da završiš sezonu nego kako ćeš da počneš.
Protiv Ramsa u play-offu, to je stvarno izgledalo grozno.
Ma da.
To je bežao za svoj život. Da. Bukvalno.
Mislim, okej, nije to sve on. Tu ćete kasnije, kad budemo pustili intervju sa Tavecchiom, baš na to pitanje šta je bitno za dobar kik, tako isto i za dobar pas za quarterbacka, nije samo quarterback.
Naravno.
Treba tu nekoliko stvari.
Da
ofenzivna linija,
vreme.
hvatači, odbrana protiv koje igraš, sve to ima veze.
Running backovi. Prvi je Derrick Henry.
Dobro.
Što ima smisla? Drugi je Jonathan Taylor. Treći Nick Chubb. Ovo je top 3 mi je totalno za legitiman. Ovu poziciju stvarno legitiman i to su i kod nas isto najbolji running backovi. Četvrti je Dalvin Cook, što isto ima smisla. Sad imamo dalje. Peti je Alvin Kamara.
Dobro.
Šesti je Joe Mixon.
Može čak i malo visoko.
Sedmi je Christian McCaffrey. To mi neko sada deluje zbog povreda.
Mislim, pre 3 godine da.
Pre 3 godine je bio top 2, top 1, kako god.
Sad, diskusija.
Osmi je Najee Harris.
Dobro,
Deveti je Aaron Jones iz Green Bay Packersa i 10 je Javonte Williams iz Denver Broncosa.
To je pravo nijotkuda, ali mislim da je to zasnovano na potencijalu. Da. Ali kao i svaki running back Denver Broncosa, hajmo da ga vidimo 3 sezone. Minimum. To je sledeće godine, on će biti dobar, verovatno. U 3. sezoni to će biti to. Znači, Denver Broncos, ja ne znam koliko su oni running backa imali da je trčao za njih 5 godina. Oni to menjaju na 2-3 godine.
Odlično, to nek bude pitanje za gledalce. Znači, ko je poslednji running back Denver Broncosa bio starter 5 godina za red?
Pa mislim da to ne postoji, bukvalno. Bar ne u nekoj skorijoj. Znam da je bio Mike Davis. Mike Davis, da. Možda nije Mike.
Nije Mike, misliš na Terrell Davis, MVP-a, da, zbunio si ga, Mike Davis iz Atlante.
Da, to nisam pomešao. Terrell Davis je bio, nakon Terrella Davisa je, ja mislim, bio Clinton Portis.
Dobro.
Pa je nakon Clinton Portisa, tipa jednu sezonu bio Ruben Drones. Onda posle njega tu već ulazimo u taj neki neistraženi teren, bio je, bio je onaj Noshawn Moreno, bile su tu neka imena, Monte Ball, CJ Anderson, ali sve godinu, 2, već u drugoj kreće pad i trećega se to siljaju. Evo ti Melvin Gordon, ista priča. Mislim, on je sad ostao zato što nema neku, da kažem, utrživu vrednost, pa nema neku utrživu vrednost s obzirom šta bi oni tražili za njega, uzevši u obzir koji je bio pik na draftu i sve ostalo. Tako da je on ostao tu u Denveru.
Mislim, da, Noshawn Moreno je bio od 2009. do 2013. Ali opet to nije...
Ali na rosteru, nije bio starter, ja mislim.
Bio starter. Čitam, da. Bukvalno 2009. starter, 10. starter, 11. nije, možda zbog povrede, zato što onda 12. opet godina. Nije i onda 13. jeste.
Znači 2 godine nije igrao od 5, mislim. To mogu i ja. Platim agentu da me ubaci neku ekipu i da bude na rosteru. I onda da kažem, bio sam 3 godine.
Van top 10 su Ezekiel Elliott,
dobro.
Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley.
Dobro, Barkley u limbu. Ne znamo šta ćemo s njim. Da. Ezekiel Elliott vrlo slično. Jedna razlika između njih što je Elliott zdrav i ne puno produktivan.
Meni je Eckler u top 10.
Eckler?
Da.
Pa dobro, tebi jeste. Ali, ali Eckler ima limit u svojoj igri. Pričamo o Kyler Murray i visini, mislim, i Eckler ima, mislim, problem sa visinom. U smislu, ne mora da bude Derrick Henry.
Da.
Ali opet zahteva ofenzivnu liniju da blokira na određeni način kada on trči.
Istina,
kad Derrick Henry trči, može blokiraš kako hoćeš.
On nije prešao 1000 yardi trčanja do sada. Sad je imao najviše 914, ali on radi drugi stvari. Iz backfielda pre svega hvata, imam dosta touchdownova.
Sa Herbertom teško će on imati 1000 yardi u backfieldu. Mislim, realno. I upravo zbog toga što oni znaju da je on odličan hvatač. I on ima iz skrimidža 1000 yardi, to nema problema. Ali trčanjem teško.
Istina. Wide receiveri, kao što sam rekli, Davante Adams na prvom mestu, ubedljivo. Cooper Kupp je isto tu, pozicija broj 2. Jamar Chase je 3, to je zanimljivo. Justin Jefferson 4. 5 je Tyreek Hill. 6 je Stephon Diggs. 7 je DeAndre Hopkins, koji će biti suspendovan prvih 6 mečeva. Neće igrati.
Mislim, Cardinals i bez Hopkinsa, s Hopkinsom su 2 različite ekipe, ali nije se baš pokazao ni on u tom drugom delu sezone da pravi razliku.
Nije, tad je propustio. U drugom delu sezone je propustio utakmice zbog povrede.
Ali koliko? Mislim, možda 3-4, a?
Pa sigurno.
Ali dobro, drugi deo sezone od 17 utakmica je barem 8.
Pola je propustio, da, Pola je sigurno propustio od tih 8 u druge polovini. Mike Evans je 8, meni bi on bio viši, pogotovo sad što nema...
Da, pa bio bi barem ispred...
Da, Andre Hopkins, sigurno. 9 je Deebo Samuel, 10 je DK Metcalf. Za koga nema u top 10? Keenan Allen. koji stvarno da opet Chargers, ali čovjek koji 6 godina za redom ili manje, ili 5 godina za redom ima minimalno 1000 yardi i 100 hvatanja, to ne možeš da zameniš. Da li je quarterback, Rivers ili Herbert, nije ni važno. A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas koji se vraća posle povrede i C.D. Lamb. Znači to je neki top 15-16.
Dobro, meni je to onako na ivici.
Meni DK Metcalf nije top 10. DeAndre Hopkinsa ne bih stavio zato što će propustiti skoro pola sezone, tih 6 mečeva neće ga biti, tako da samo iz te strane bi zamenio, stavio bi i A.J. Browna i Keenan Allena.
Da, ali A.J. Brown sad u Philly? Neće to biti to.
Vidjet ćemo, ali dobro, ima s druge strane Devonte Smitha, nešto što nije imao u Tennessee-u, to neko ko neće biti stalno fokus obrane.
Ali ima još nešto što nije imao u Tennessee-u, Jalena Hurtsa.
Koliko je Tannehill bolji od Hurtsa? Vidiš, Hurts i Tannehill nisu u top 15.
Ja čak ne bih ni rekao da je puno bolji. Bolji je za iskustvo, a gori je za starost, ako me razumeš šta hoću kažem time. Iskusnije, video je mnogo više igre od Jalena Hurtsa, spremnije da donese odluku pre nego Jalen Hurts, što je trenutno najveći problem, ali sa druge strane i on ima limit koliko će da igra, jer neće postajati bolji. To je to. Tannehill je to što smo videli.
Tannehill može samo gori da bude sad.
On može samo da bude u nekom sistemu, kao što je Foles bio u Eaglesima, onda koji će da dođe do Super Bola i da onda tu, ako ima dobro veče, da odigra kako treba.
Da.
Ali, znaš, onda nije bacio one interceptione koji ja i dalje mislim da nisu u potpunosti njegova krivica. Mislim, vidi, ta akcija se izvodi, ko nije igrao fudbal može misli šta hoće. Bubble se izvodi tako da quarterback, to je no-brainer. Uzmeš loptu, okrećeš kuko i bacaš. Mislim, nema to šta. To je kao da kažeš a zašto mu je dao loptu što nije povuk kad je vidio da je čovjek probio ofenzivnu liniju. Ne vidiš. Ti ne gledaš u to.
Jasno,
ti uzmeš loptu, okrećeš kuko i bacaš pas, čovjek se pojavlja i seče. Mislim, to je scouting odbrane.
Neko mi deluje da to stvarno najbolji quarterback koji makar ovi u 105 to ne bi radili.
Ne, ja mislim da bi to uradili, ali kako bi ti rekao, mislim da tu najviše treba da gledamo kako je veše Hilton ili Hinton.
Hilton, kako reagovao.
Da, kako, zašto je on to pročitao? Pročitao što je znao šta će da igraju, mislim.
Istina.
A ti kad znaš da će se igra bubble, ti realno praviš interception, a to nije quarterbackova greška.
A ostale dve.
Kako?
Ostale dve.
Pa dobro, okej. Ta je bila posljednji ekster u kovčegu, ali kako se zove, ovo je prva isto, prve zapravo ne mogu se setiti. Šta je beše bila prva njegova intercepcija? Ne može se ti da setiš.
Ne mogu se da setim.
Druga je bila, ja bi tako bacio.
Drugi, treći se sećam tačno i treću, kažem ti meni, ja stvarno ne vidim da bi Tom Brady, Rodgers, Allen čak, Mahomes i Barrow, koji isto na tom meču bio sekund 9 puta, ne bi napravili tu grešku.
Da, ja ti opet kažem, ti kada posmatraš...
Ne, jasno mi, ali mislim da to i zato nije gledanje tejpa...
Ok, sad je pitanje, šta ti očekuješ od njega da on u toj situaciji? Evo, šta je idealan scenario? Ti si Ryan Tannehill, znaš da će Hilton da ide na intercept, šta ti radiš? Znači, akcija dizajnera ti baciš bubble, ok, izdržaš loptu i budeš sekovan. Ili šta, još gore, skrembuješ kod sredine, gde nemaš blokove.
Bolje si sekovan nego interception situacija.
Pa dobro, mislim, ok, bolje je, ja se slažem da je to bolje, ali... Kako bi ti rekao, to ti je...
Mislim da je to Tannehill stvarno što ti kažeš automatski uradio.
To se radi automatski.
Kao robo, ali da, mislim da ova petorica još možda još neki quarterback koji ne bi to uradili odmah tako. Automatski, odmah pap.
Ok, možda, ali kako bi ti rekao...
Makar bi fintirao.
Meni deluje da to nije bio nikakav read, da on nikog nije čitao, nego je bila akcija bubble.
Ne mogu setim akcije da li je neko bio slobodan odmah, to stvarno ne sećam.
Nema šta bude, to je bubble akcija.
Ne, znam.
Znaš, ovaj blokira, ovaj hvata iza, nema ko bude slobodan, s te strane. Onda ako misliš s druge strane, on ne gleda drugu stranu. Druga strana radi neki decoy ili blokira odmah, mislim. Ne mogu sad ni ja da se setim tačno kako je bila akcija, ali sećam se da je bio bam.
Da završimo taman i sa ofenzivnim linjašem, to je s ofenzivnim teklovima, kao što je rekao, prvi je Trent Williams, mislim, nema stvarno, nije šokantno uopšte i dobio je čovjek i 99 rating u Medenu za narodno izdanje. Drugi je Tristan Wirfs iz Tampa Bay Buccaneers, desni tekl, to je zanimljivo. Treći je Bakhtiari, koji će se vratiti posle povrede, četvrti je Rashawn Slater iz Chargersa, peti je Tyron Smith, levi tekl Dallas Cowboysa, šesti je Laramie Tunsil, levi tekl Houston Texansa.
Krađa.
Sedmi je Lane Johnson.
Lane Johnson?
Je sedmi, da.
Direktno iz penzije.
Ronnie Stanley iz Baltimora je osmi, koji se isto vraća čini se s povrede. Ryan Ramczyk je deveti, Saints i 10. je Teron Armstead sad u Dolphinsima. Nekadašnji levi tackle Saints. I imamo tu Orlando Brown Jr. koji si ti rekao treba da potpiše, to je ponudili su mu masivan ugovor.
Ponudili su mu nenormalno puno para, ali još uvijek nije prihvatio.
Da. Penny Sewell iz Detroit Lions je još tu, Jordan Mailata iz Philadelphia Eagles je tu, Terrell Levan iz Titans je tu i onda ima Colton Miller, Taylor Moton iz Carolina Panthers, zanimljivo. Mi je tu neku top 15-20 po njihovim glasanjima i Brian O'Neill iz Minnesota Viking. Dobro, da zanimljivo.
Vidjet ćemo sledeću sezonu.
Pa da. Ne znam sad ko mi iskače ovde previše, to što si rekao, Laremy Tunsil, na primjer.
Meni potpuno besmisleno da on bude na top 10.
Ali
mislim da to ima veze s tim što je dugo u ligi. Mislim, ne znam, zavisi kako oni to biraju.
Nije toliko, koliko je, kada je draftan, 2017. ili 18.
Ja mislim da je pre-draftan. On je bio u Miami pa je tradovan.
Bio je, ali mislim da nije 2017. ili 18. tako nešto. Da.
19. je tradovan. Ali ne.
16. je draftovan.
Da.
Prva runda 13.
Pa dobro, to je već 5 punih sezona u ligi. 6.
Pa
to je dosta, mislim.
Pa
sada prosječna karijera traje 3 godine.
No,
on je
mlađi ima 28 godina.
Ne, okej, ali mislim kao dugo je u ligi, ona već se dugo zna za njega i on kad je došao u Houston, to je bilo najavljeno kao brutalno dobro pojačanje i ono, samo fall startuje čovjek. Ja znam da je u tome dobar. Pa mislim, kad god sam radio Houston Texans, Laremy Tunsil, bar 2 ima. I to obično na trećem danu. Baš ono, veliki no, to ne smeš da radiš.
Misliš da je zbog imena pre svega, da što je bio je dosta hajpa i pre nego što je draftovan i sve da treba bude i jedan najboljih levih teklova u ligi. Tako misliš da je ono 6. što opet doda i pomaže moj teri, da zaista izgleda treneri,
pa ne, teorija ti nije dobra, Vanja.
Ne može mi
ljudi dobijaju pare da gledaju.
Pa super što dobijaju pare, ali kako mogu onda ova rangiranja su takva kakva su, ako neko stavi da je ne znam, Fred Warner, eto, to van top 10 linebacker. Ti stvarno možeš meni da napraviš top 10 linebacker.
To možda je stavljeno 11. mjesto.
Pa dobro, možda mi napraviš 10 koji su bolji od njega. Hoćeš da kažem stvarno Jordan Brooks bolji, Brooks bolji od Warnera.
Meni nije, ali nekom jeste. I to moraš da poštiš.
Jel ti je bolji Srđane, veliki? Da li ti je bolji Jordan Brooks
od Freda Warnera? Linebacker. Ko? Pa nije, ali okej, nekome jeste. I taj neko je na ESPN-u.
Nije na ESPN.
Pa dobro, ESPN ga je pitao šta god, objavio.
Zašto? Ne vredi, moram se uključiti. Dobro, prežem ESPN. Šalim se, naravno. To je to, prošli smo top 10 liste.
Da, imamo vesti.
Aha, ko je?
Pa trade, veliki trade.
Veliki trade, da, na Kill Harry.
Veći od na Kill Harry.
U Chicago Bears za pika i 7. runde, 2024.
Nekadašnji pik prve runde.
Tako je.
Kad su posljednji put Patrioti draftovala hvatača u prvoj rundi, tada, kako je, kao ono, how it started, how it's going, dajte nam pika 7. runde za njega.
Bukvalno samo stoji da se otara sa čovjek.
Da. Dobro, okej, pazi.
Da li postoji, da li može da obnovi svoju karijeru N'Keal Harry sada sa Justin Fieldsom u Chicagu?
Ja ne verujem u te procvate, mislim da je to samo rezervisano za Hollywood. Tako da mislim da ne. Ali da li može da bude ono, evo, ne osam nagolor, jer procvetao. Nije, samo je bio bolji. Ali nije procvetao, nije on sad elitni hvatač NFL-a i kao Eaglesi su ga gušili.
Ja može bude bolji Harry?
Pa, mislim, da li je teško budeš gori od ovog što je sad Harry? Realno.
Istina.
Neka počne za to da ne ispustili nijednu loptu, on je već mnogo bolji.
Znaš šta je pitanje? Da li će dobiti adekvatnu priliku u Chicagu? Ne bi me čudilo ga stvarno Chicago katuje tokom trening kampa ili u predsezoni.
Okej, sumnjam, kad daš pika, pa čak i 7. runde, obično ne razmišljaš tome da će ga, ali vidi, ako se on pokaže kao lenjivac koji neće da trenira, koji ono jednostavno ima svoj fazon, u što sumnjam jer je bio u Patriotama realno dugo, mislim da je taj tip da bi bio odmah katovan. Ja samo mislim da su za njega Patriote bile preveliki zalogaj, znaš. Što opet govori o tome koliki su njegovi dometi. Ako su ti Patriote preveliki zalogaj, tvoji dometi su da budeš u ekipi koja se bori za playoff. I da slaviš kad si drugi u svojoj diviziji. Mislim, što je okej, legit, ima franšiza koja bi se time zadovoljila. Detroit Lionsi bi volili da vide playoff sigurno u narednih 5 godina. To bi za njih bilo fantastično. Pa zar ne? To je bio ogroman uspeh. A zamisli Patrioti da ne vide 4 godine playoff. To je bilo veliko razočarenje. Pa da. Tako da mislim da u tom smislu je ono, ti si rekao da li će to biti limitirajuće za njega, ali to je to, same sebe doveo tu situaciju. Tom Brady ti je bio quarterback. Šta si uradio? Spuštao si lopte, famblirao si. Nisi radio akcije na pravi način. A sad dobiješ Justina Fieldsa. Da se uči. Mislim da se uči. Da se razvija u NFL-u. Ti ćeš biti taj koji će na njegov loš read kad dobiješ loptu da dobiješ kaznu fizičku, mislim. Šta da radiš? Tu si trenutno, mislim. Taj si kalibar. Da se uči quarterback, da se razvija na tebi 2 godine, pa da onda draftujemo nekog ubicu s kojim će da napravi konekciju. Mislim...
Šteta.
Pa sad šteta ili nije šteta, što šteta, što se ne tvrdi više. Otko znam, mislim, nemam pojma, vidjet ćemo. Ja ne mislim da će onda procveta, ali mislim da će imati čak i bolju šansu. Jer znaš, to je taj novi talas, njemu možda i više odgovara mlad quarterback.
Dobro, ima je Mac Jones za poslednje 2 godine. Poslednje godine nazivim.
Ima, ali tad već Patriote su verovatno bile dosta keleherije.
Tako ne znam, to je pa jedina to vest.
Da, to je...
Da, promena imena, bravo. To je bilo početkom nedelje, čini mi se.
Kečapa.
Da. A neko mnogo čune sad da...
Stadion u Pittsburghu se više ne zove Heinz Field.
Tako je. Kako se zove?
Nemam pojma. Šta ću da nađem? Nešto na...
Nađem, molim te, ne bi tražio, ali meni je stvarno šokantno i ime Heinz Field je od 2001. godine ili 2000. Znači od početka milenijuma, malte ne. Stadion Pittsburgha zvao Heinz Field i iskreno nisam ni imao ideju da će ikada se promeni naziv.
Akrišur.
Da.
Šta je s osiguranjima, čoveče? Znači napali su sve stadione.
Da.
Neverovatno.
Ne znam, baš ne sviđa mi se ta promena, neko mi je ostalo dobro, možda zato što smo, kako se zvao stadion Pittsburgha pre Heinz Fielda?
Stari Heinz Field.
Neko se naviku na to ime, tako da kao što se ja nikad neću navići da Staples Center zovem crypto.com arenu.
O Bože, crypto.com.
Crypto.com, to nikad u životu više neću izgovoriti, to će od uvijek biti za mene Staples Center.
Obožavam te takve kreativne.
Tako da, pa da.
Da. Da, i meni jeste, čudno je, mislim, veliki stadion, ali mislim, promeni samo ime, da stadion dalje tu, nije kao su srušili i digli novi. Ali okej, to je danas...
Kad budeš radio mečeve Pittsburgha, ako bude bilo...
To došli u Pittsburgh. Kraj nema. Na meč između Steelersa i koga god.
Da.
Šta, kakav Acrisure? Moram čuti kako se izgovara to. Acrisure, nemam pojma.
Da, morat ćeš da vežbaš realno.
Da. Zvuči čudno. Znaš, daje neki kao Lumen stadion. To je okej, to sam pregrmeo.
Koji?
Lumen.
Čiji to?
To je Seattle Seahawksi.
Kako se prezvao?
Što je najgore... Kako?
Pa nije da Seahawks Nest.
Nije.
Sad
tražim upravo.
Da, molim te, sad baš razmišljam, ne mogu da se setim. Dok Jimmy ne pronađe, evo piše Marko da je pre Heinz Fielda bio 3 River Stadium u Pittsburghu.
3 River Stadium, dobar naziv. Pošto se nalazi na 3 reke.
Da, dobar naziv. Pišite ako imate pitanja, 10 minuta maksimalno, pa onda puštamo...
Central Links Field.
Odličan naziv,
opet neka financije, nešto.
Ali ne veze li je dobro.
Lumen Field je, Lumen, ne možeš poveći.
Neko Central Link Field mi je bio bolji.
Nema neko glomljenje jezika.
Kao što rekao, pišite pitanja, odgovarat ćemo narednih 10 minuta, ako budu bila, ako ne odmah ćemo pustiti Tavekija, kaže, ja sam stvarno oduševio intervju. Znači,
da.
Stvarno je čovjek carina i...
Najcool kicker. Znači, nikad nisam zamišljao da je kicker tako cool lik i da je toliko razume fudbal.
Ali čućete, kako objašnjava zapravo celu nauku iza šutiranja.
Da.
To je nevjerovatno.
Da, još prime sa svega onako fantastične, to što je Giorgio Italijan, mislim, on je rođen u Italiji, ali od 9. godine živi u Americi. Ali taj način kako on priča i kako ubacuje italijanske prideve, maestro, kad kaže, meni je to... Da, Michelangelo. To je zaista fenomenalno. I zanimljiva mu je karijera kroz NFL. Iako, eto, nije imao baš puno prilike da bude starter, najveći trag, da kažemo, ostavio u Raidersima i to kad su bili u Oaklandu i Atlanta Falconsi, ali, mislim, čućete i kasnije kada imao je tu, da kažem, sreću, nesreću, kako već hoćete da nazovete, da je, kako on kaže, uvek od januara do septembra imao ekipu.
Da, imao je posao.
Da, imao je posao 9 mjeseci godišnje, ali onda u septembru kat. I onda eventualno se... I težak je to život. Dosta se seljakao, dosta je išao iz grada u grad, a opet kada pogledaš realno igraš kikera. u američkom futbolu. Znaš, nije kao da si quarterback, pa sad kao, ej, nova šansa, mediji, ovo, ne, ovde mediji pišu tebi samo kad si promašio, realno, uglavnom.
Pa da,
ili kad si pogodio poslednji.
Ili kad si Justin Tucker, pa onda si bog.
Ili kad si Justin Tucker, da. Ali uglavnom da ne prepričavamo intervju, mislim, poslušajte stvarno, ne traje čak ni dugo. Đorđo nije imao previše vremena, pa smo onako uklopili sve u sat vremena.
Ali bit će ponovo gost, stvarno izrazio želju. Ova nedelja mu je bye week, sledeća nedelja igra protiv Istanbula, tako ono, prevratno ćemo tako bude bio playoff u ILF-u, se ponovo čuti. A
i nakon što poslušate intervju, ja vas ohrabrujem da ispratite i Barcelona Dragse u LF.
A čekaj, zašto Drags?
Pa kao...
Dragons.
Pa Dragons je kao skraćeno, kao Drags, kao tako su meni rekli, nemam pojma.
Ko ti to rekao?
Ha?
Ko ti to rekao?
Nemam pojma, tako ljudi govore. Ne znam, sad se nećem ko mi tačno rekao.
Nećem, to ćemo posle šta to znači. Ne možeš...
Barcelona Dragons.
Mora Zmajevi, nemoj skraćuješ.
Zmajevi, Barcelona Zmajevi, koji igraju u LF-u.
Bio je sjajan meč protiv Vijena Viking. Stvarno je bio nevjerojatan meč da su vodili 28 pre četvrtine i izgubili su 27-20.
Da ne, odličan meč.
Da.
Odličan meč i to nam Đorđe nije puno pričao, to smo pričali pre nego što smo upalili kameru.
Da, pre nego što smo upalili recording, ali stvarno gledao sam posle highlightove meč i nevjerovatno vidio se nivo igre u ILF-u baš na jednom poprilično višem nivou nego ostatak američkog fudbala u Evropi.
Istina. Ili imamo neka pitanja?
Nema pitanja za sada, tako mislim da su stvarno spremni za intervju. Hoćeš da najaviš i da nas odjaviš.
Ajde da kažemo onda. Znači, sada sledi intervju sa Đorđom Tavekijom, nekadašnjim kikerom u NFL-u, sadašnjim kikerom u LF-u, a što se, ostanite i poslušajte, zaista, kao što smo već rekli, odličan je intervju, jeste na engleskom, ali eto, imajte onako strpljenja, nismo koristili nikakve teške izraze, tako da mislim...
Nismo ni italijanski gestikulacije.
Tako, dosta toga gestikulacija. A što se nas tiče, mi ćemo sad da se odjavimo, tako da lajkujte, subscribeujte se na naš kanal ako do sad to niste. Naravno, ukoliko...
Prešli smo 18.000 subscribera. Ovo je malo po malo, do kraja godine preko 20 sigurno, vratno oko 25.
Ali definitivno mislim da i svi vi znate da tek sada kada krene avgust, druga polovina, kada budu i učestalije vesti i pre-season i sve, tad ćemo da se onako svi družimo.
Spremamo jedan intervju
intenzivno,
za početku avgusta.
Pa spremamo intervju, popunit ćemo i mi to vreme, znate da smo mi vredni da se trudimo da vam pružimo najbolji mogući sadržaj što se tiče američkog fudbala. Stoga ovaj intervju na engleskom, pričamo sa ljudima i to nam je sada cilj, da pričamo sa ljudima koji su ili sada u NFL-u ili su nedavno bili u NFL-u, jer želimo da vam približimo to iskustvo, a i krajnji liniji da mi saznamo nešto novo. Meni je zaista bilo jako lepo slušati i razgovarati sa Đorđom Tavekijom i jedva čekam taj veliki intervju koji, što kaže Vanja, spremamo da odradimo i da ga pustimo, a vi, kao što rekoh, lajkujte, subscribeujte, šerujte, što ima još, Vanja? To je to. I mi vas pozdravljamo, a vi poslušajte intervju Đorđa Tavekio.
Dobar dan, dobrodošli u 99 jardi, izdanje 88 i danas imamo toliko posebnog gosta s nama, bivšeg NFL igrača i sa time, zbog toga zapravo ćemo nastaviti na engleskom, pre svega Jimmy, kako si?
Ja sam odlično, a bit ću još bolje kada počnemo da pričamo sa našim gostom.
Da, odmah ćemo onda krenuti. So, as I said, we'll continue in English. First of all, our guest, a very special guest, is a former NFL kicker, Đorđo Tavekio. Giorgio, dari il benvenuto, come va?
Dobro večer, ciao, doing well, thank you, happy to be here.
Nice, so good.
Yeah,
see, I spoke in Italian, he spoke in Serbian, so it's all good.
Perfect.
Now.
So I'm the intruder here. I can only speak English, So yeah, Giorgio. First of all, thank you for joining our podcast, and thank you for doing this. Right now you're in Barcelona, right? You play for the ELF team called Barcelona Drags. So yeah, tell us, how did that happen?
It was a wild ride, like most of my football journey has been. During COVID, I was spending a lot of time in Italy, dating a woman, matters of the heart. I was living here, and although I have a lot of family here in Italy, I spent a lot of time in the United States, obviously, when I moved there, when I turned 9. But after meeting this woman, I've been spending a lot of time in Italy, and it's living in a town called Saronno, which is just outside Milano, just north of Milan. So I had some friends who were on the Milano Seamen. I reached out to them in the spring of 2021 last year. And I said, guys, I'm going to be living in Saronno. Is there any way I can come play with you guys, practice with you guys? And they were kind enough to invite me, to have me a part of the team. So I was playing with them. It was a blast. And then towards the end of the domestic season in Italy, I had heard about the European League of Football. I heard about this new startup league that had purchased the naming rights to the old NFL Europe teams. And there was a team in Barcelona. So I started to follow the league. It looked like it was a legit production, professionally organized, professionally structured. So I reached out to the team in Barcelona, who had a general manager from Italy. That's why I chose Barcelona, because I thought, well, this guy's Italian. He might know a little bit about my story. And talked to Bart Iacarino. He was kind enough to say, you know what, we could use a kicker. If you want to come over, come on down. So within a couple of days, I had a flight, flew out to Barcelona, and very grateful that I did, because it's been a very positive experience for me so far on a lot of different levels. And I know we'll get into some of that, but that's how it happened. Just kind of randomly, I was living in Europe and just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
So I think when you say, with all your experience, that, you know, the ELF so far has been good experience for you, and you played, you know, in the NFL, was played at the college level, I think it's really telling something, and we all hope it's gonna be, you know, what we expect the ELF to be. But yeah, you said like when you were 9, you moved to the United States. So you were born in Italy, right? So you are genuine Italian, right?
Yes. I was born in Milano. My mom is Italian American. My dad's Italian. And my dad always tells the story that he fell asleep as a bachelor in Milan and woke up with 2 kids in America the next day. It just happened randomly like that. But I grew up with both cultures in the house. My mom, again, being Italian, I had Italian background from her as well. But she's born in New York, very staunchly New Yorker. And when we got the opportunity to move back to the United States, we thought it was a good opportunity for the family, because my mom's job. So we moved to the U.S., moved to California, and we liked it so much in the San Francisco Bay Area. We lived about half an hour outside of San Francisco. And we liked it so much that we thought, you know, this could be a good place for us. And that's where we stayed. My parents still live in the same area. I ended up going to middle school and high school in the United States, and then went to college close by as well. So nice. I was very, very fortunate to have that opportunity. And people ask me all the time, do you feel more American or do you feel more Italian? I always say the same thing. I feel very Californian, because it's a mix between the two worlds.
That's a great answer. Let's start actually from your college playing days. So I heard that you got a soccer scholarship from University of California, Davis, but you turned that down because they didn't offer a football scholarship. So how was that like? How did you choose between the University of California that you did go and refused to go to the University of California, Davis?
Sure. Well, I think somebody made a mistake on Wikipedia, because I wasn't offered a scholarship at UC Davis to play soccer, but I was offered an opportunity. Yeah, I was a pretty good soccer player, but I wasn't anything special.
What position?
But I had center mid or attacking mid, number 10. I had a very good first touch. I read the game very well. But you know, how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people like that exist in the world? So, but growing up Italian, I was always more of a soccer fan. And even when I started to play football in high school, which happened very randomly, the story basically is that during my second year of high school, I was walking down the hallway, and in the other direction came one of my close friends. And he was wearing a Raiders jersey that day. And he said, hey, we need a kicker on our football team. Do you want to join? And I was like, I'm good, thanks. And I went home that night and told my mom, told her the story. Hey, one of my friends asked me to be the kicker. And she goes, you know, you're also American. You should try it. Why not? But I think she said that because she was sick of me and my brother and I using little mini soccer balls around the house and breaking everything, because we would always be kicking a little soccer ball around. So the next day, after school, I went to football practice, hit a couple of kicks, and it was fun because all my friends were on the football team. So it was a bunch of buddies of mine. And then after practice, we had a team barbecue, and the barbecue ribs were so good. I remember thinking, if I got to kick a couple of footballs to get this barbecue afterwards, I'll do it.
The ribs made you play football.
I made a fair point with my stomach. That's how it started, and it started innocently, but I had a good time, and I started to develop as a kicker as well, even though I was more focused on soccer.
So like I'm assuming that at a time you were in both, right? Soccer and football.
Yeah, correct. I was playing soccer year round, and then I would go to football practice a little bit on Mondays, and then go to soccer practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then go to football practice on Thursday because that's when the barbecue was, and then we'd play our games on Fridays. So
he was a two sport star in high school, soccer and football.
Nice.
A little side note, sorry to interrupt, Milan or Internazionale?
Inter. I'm an Inter fan.
Okay.
It's okay.
I like Roma, so it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, and you wouldn't believe how many people here in Serbia are divided between Milan and Inter. Yeah. So, people like both teams.
They're good teams. They're popular, so I totally get it. But I'm a good sports fan. It's not like I hate one team or another. It's not who wins. As long as Juventus doesn't win too much.
Sergeant just said like nobody likes Juventus. That's amazing. Like nobody can stand them.
There's a long history. Back to high school, I thought I was going to be able to play soccer in high school because I was playing at a very high level competitively across the state of California, and I got recruited to play at UC Davis. And I wasn't on a scholarship, but I did get enough of a recruitment from the soccer team to get me into school, right? And that, as I was getting towards the end of my high school years, I wanted to use sports as a way to get into the universities that I wanted to attend. And thankfully it worked out with soccer where they saw me play. They said, hey, we like you. If you want to come to UC Davis, we'll help you get into the school. And I had great grades, but the soccer team helped me a little bit to get in. And I remember when I went to visit the soccer team, I also kind of snuck into the football offices and met the special teams coach, knocked on his door and said, Coach, I'm going to come here to play soccer. Is there any way I can maybe try out for the football team? And he said, well, we have enough kickers now, but maybe in the spring if you want to come try out. So I thought maybe, I could keep that two-sport action going, but it was more for soccer. And then I remember UC Berkeley, Cal Berkeley, out of nowhere called me May 28th, 4:01 p.m. So 16:01 p.m. And that's a week or two before I graduated high school. That is tremendously late in the process. Usually you decide whether you're going to go to school November or the fall before you graduate in the spring. This was a week or two before graduating. And I had attended a kicking camp at Cal Berkeley in the summertime before my senior year because it was 20 minutes from my house. It was a big time college football program and I just wanted to improve as a kicker. And I did well, but you could tell I was a little underdeveloped, right? Other kickers were there, like full-time kickers. They were really serious. They had a lot of technique. I just had raw potential, but I guess they remembered my curly hair, my short soccer shorts, and they kept me in mind for some reason. And at the last minute, when they realized they had one extra spot on the college team for a kicker, they said, you know what, we'll offer this guy, again, the same thing that UC Davis offered me, which was a chance to get into school and then just kind of try out for the team when you get there. It's called a walk-on, essentially. Preferred walk-on. So I thought about it, prayed about it for a day. I was like, I can't pass up Cal football, which is Division I, highest level football. Yeah. It's just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I decided, sure, let's give it a shot. And that's how I showed up at Cal. Really, the first day of school was my first practice. I ended up playing 3 days later. Had no business being on the field that early, but I ended up playing a lot over 4 years, and it was an absolute blessing because it gave me a lot of opportunities for growth.
Well, you were, as you said, for 4 years, but the first year, I want to know, you did have to battle like two other kickers. How was that experience? And in general, your first year, we heard other guests telling us that the first year was actually like living hell. The practices were so hard, so difficult to adjust, but after that, it was much easier the second, third, and fourth year. How was your first year for you?
Yeah, it's definitely an adjustment period because in high school you play with your friends and it's fun and it's serious enough because you might think you can play college there, but then you get to college and it's a machine and you're just plugged into this machine. You have no voice and whatever the coach says is the word of God, and you're getting up at 5 a.m. to go run until you puke, and then you go to school all day and then you come back for practice in the afternoon. It's an adjustment. It's an adjustment. It's very difficult because there's a lot expected of you. And you have to be very diligent in managing your time. And you have to have a lot of mental fortitude to just keep on taking one step after another because the stakes are much higher. And then maybe in high school, you're the best player in your state or the best player in your town and everybody knows your name and you're the superstar, right? And then you get to college and you're the fifth superstar in that same way and nobody knows your name. You're not playing. So you're doing all this extra work and you don't even get a chance to play on the field. And that was that's very difficult for a lot of guys because at least if you play on the field, you get the chance to feel rewarded for your efforts. And when you have to wait and be patient behind, 2 or 3 other stars for a couple of years, investing the same amount of time as they do, maybe more, it's very difficult to manage. Psychologically, emotionally.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Very few true freshmen actually can play the first year.
Yeah,
I know Derek Stingley from the corner from LSU played as a freshman. Obviously, he was a first-round pick, but very, very few have to be extremely talented, but also physically gifted enough to play with. So that's first year. So you're 18 against 21, 22-year-olds. That's a big difference.
No, exactly. That difference is huge. I know it's only a couple years in age, but in preparation, it's a world apart because these 20 to 21, 22-year-olds have been training intensely under the guidance of professional coaches who just destroy you, beat you down to build you back up in the way that they want you to be, with the mindset and the culture that they want to impact you with. And 18-year-olds come from playing high school where a lot of times, they might work super hard, but it's not the same level of preparation. It's not the same level of resources poured into preparing guys. So there's a huge difference, right? Huge difference in physical preparation. That's why in the NFL too, it's prohibited. Although I think now you can be 2 years removed from college and declare for the NFL, but you can't make the jump high school to the NFL because it's just too big of a gap physically, right? Yeah. And you're completely right. Like very few people, because there's so many good players already ahead of them, and a lot of times that physical gap is too big. I had no business being on the field my true freshman year. I did well. I had some good games. I had some not so good games, but I was tremendously lucky because there were some older kickers who were hurt, maybe weren't as good as they thought. The coaches thought they were going to be, and I just was at the right place at the right time where there was an opportunity. They needed somebody, and I was talented enough physically to do it, right? Emotionally, maybe psychologically, I wasn't quite prepared for it because I went from playing in front of 500-600 people to, remember, the opening kickoff of the first game of the season was in front of 72,000 people, Michigan State at home on national television. And I remember I was standing there for the opening kickoff, and I literally almost got to delay a game on the opening kickoff because I didn't hear the whistle. I was just sitting there, like, waiting to start. And I look over the sideline. All the coaches were like, "Go!" I was like, "Oh." But I mean, that just gives you an idea of the context that I came from, and then where I was just all of a sudden boop, boom, dropped in front of people.
So basically, at your first year at college, you get to play, right away, or?
Yeah, after 3 days, right? Because I showed up the first day of school was my first practice because I wasn't a high recruit, and they only brought, a certain amount of players to training camp in the month of August, which is where they compete and decide who's starting. And I show up the first day of school, and the other kicker had just gotten hurt, and they're just like, "All right, you know what? We need you, so you're going to be kicking off." And within 3 days, I was playing, which is unheard of, right? Unheard of. It's very rare.
It's also very impressive. I do believe you didn't miss extra point your freshman year, right?
No, didn't miss any extra points. I was pretty decent on field goals, but it was very psychologically stressful, right? Because I went, again, playing for fun, playing for some barbecue ribs after practice, to grown men whose jobs are to make us win, right? The coaches and players who wanted to make it. It's like such a just world apart in stage and scope.
Right. And so, like, fast forward to year number 2. So how was it compared to year number 1? Was it like easier? Was it the same? Now you're already familiar with the stadium, the fans, what is expected from you, the coaches and everything. So how was year number 2 for you compared to year number 1? And one more thing, in year 2, how was your competition? Did you have, let's say, like 4 kickers competing, or did they say, okay, this is our guy, you know, we're going to go with Giorgio no matter what?
So year 2 was different because of the competition. I was a walk-on, so I wasn't on scholarship my freshman year. And after my freshman year, I did a good job, but I don't think I gave enough confidence to the coaches, and they actually scholarshiped a kid at a high school behind me, which is usually the death toll or the death bell for somebody saying, all right, well, we're not giving you the scholarship, we're giving someone younger than you the scholarship, which basically means, you know, you're kind of off the table. This guy's going to be our guy. We believe in him, which is why we're giving him scholarship. And this guy was Vincenzo D'Amato. His story was exactly the same as mine. Born in Sicily, born in Palermo, moved to the United States when he was 9 or 10, moved to Los Angeles. Played soccer throughout high school, happened to start kicking footballs in high school and got really good and got recruited to Cal. And we competed for the starting spot in training camp. We both kicked super well. They ended up deciding he would do field goals, I would do kickoffs, but then a couple games in he got hurt, so I ended up playing for most of the year anyways, although he came in a little bit at the end. And although we competed for the starting spot on the field, we became the best of friends off the field because
it had to be like that.
Yeah, it had to be like that. We came from the same culture, same background. And for us, football was just a plus, right? We were just so grateful to be at Cal Berkeley, and we didn't want to live a bad experience. So I remember one of the first, after a week or 2 of him being there, we just sat down and said, listen, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to, you're going to do your best. I'm going to do my best. And whatever happens on the field, happens on the field. But I don't want there to be any problems with us personally because we're getting along great. And that's how we lived our competition. And we ended up becoming best friends. I consider him still my best friend now, after, 14, 15 years. So Very grateful that he came into my life in that way. Although at the time I was a little bit, it was a bummer because I felt like, man, I played pretty well freshman year. Other guys are on scholarship. I'm producing. I'm doing great in the classroom. I'm doing well on the field. Like, why are they passing me over? Or why are they writing me off? That was my sophomore year. Yeah.
Okay, and then like I was always wondering, is there like a point in time when you, in your case, you said like, hey, I had a chance of going pro. This might be something I'll do for a living, and it's better I get serious with this. I get prepared because the next thing for me is the NFL. Did you had that moment, and if you did, when was it?
Sure. I actually never had that moment specifically until after my senior season. And it was something that, because I had a solid junior year, but I missed a couple like late game kicks that just left a bitter taste in my mouth. So going into my senior year, my goal was to just be as present as possible and stay as focused in the moment that I was living as possible, because I wanted to live the full experience. So anytime my mind would start to drift on what if, what's afterwards, it was, just stay focused. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to your teammates to be as present and as invested in what we're doing now, instead of thinking about what your individual future is. And I ended up having a great senior season. I statistically was one of the best kickers in college football, did awesome. And it wasn't until after that season ended in late 2011 that I thought, okay, I still have 4 months of college left because I was finishing my degree. I was working an internship, and I was working part-time, and then I was training for football. So I had kind of 4 or 5 forks in the road. And that's when I started to think, let me just invest another 6 months in football just to keep myself ready in case something happens. And that's when I started to think a little bit more about a potential future in the NFL. But it was very much, let's do 6 more months, keep training, see how it goes, and make a decision in the summer with what to do with my life.
Was there any like indication from the NFL scouts or from your coaches that there will be a chance for you to get drafted or signed or anything like that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because I was a left-footed kicker playing in the Pac-10. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of an East Coast bias when it comes to college football. They tend to follow the SEC, East Coast schools a little bit more. And I just wasn't really on many people's radars. I didn't get invited to any of the Senior Bowl games, the East and West Shrine game, the Senior Bowl, the NFLPA Bowl wasn't on anybody's radar, even though I had a great season and I was kicking really well. But what ended up happening, and I got, again, super lucky, I think it was divine intervention in that NFL teams run local pro days for the graduating seniors in the colleges in their area. And obviously I was at Cal Berkeley, so I was close to the Oakland Raiders and San Francisco 49ers. I don't even think I was officially invited. I never received an official invitation to the 49ers. I'll say that to the 49ers Open Pro Day, but a couple of my teammates did. So I just said, you know what, I'll drive with you guys. I'll pay gas, whatever. We'll go down there and see. And then in the end, I was actually on their list. So just no one communicated to me. And I had we did a tryout. I was the only kicker there, and they were looking specifically for a left-footed camp leg, which I'll get to what that means in a second, because they had, at the time, David Akers, left-footed kicker coming off a Pro Bowl year, wonderful, just awesome kicker. And they were looking for someone just to kind of make sure he didn't overkick in the summertime and just kind of take a look at someone to be his understudy, right? To be his camp leg, which is what that means, basically. So I was at the right place at the right time. They were looking for a lefty camp leg, and I had a great tryout. So the then special teams coach, his name is Brad Seeley, told me after the tryout, he said, hey, I thought you did great. If nobody drafts you, we'll probably sign you. And he said it in that same tone, matter of fact. And I was like, okay, cool. Talk is cheap. We'll see if anything happens. And then when draft day came around, he started to call me and say, hey, just checking in. If anybody's thinking about drafting you, I just wanted to know. We're still thinking about signing you as an undrafted free agent. And when the draft ended, phone rang again. Coach Seeley, we're looking to sign you if you want to be an undrafted free agent. I said, sure, do it. So they sent over the contract. I brought it to my favorite cafe in Berkeley, signed it on my favorite table because it's a very special place for me. And that's literally how it all worked out. Zero attention, zero notoriety. I did my local pro day at my university because the university is also run a pro day. And it got basically rained out. It was pouring rain. The scouts stepped on the field after doing all the trials in the weight room with everybody. And they stepped on the field, took a look at the rain, and left. I kicked anyways because in my mind I was like, I'm going to prepare for this. This is a special day for me. I'm going to kick regardless. So it was like a Shawshank Redemption in the pouring rain. I kicked great. But nobody was watching, unfortunately. Go ahead.
No, you did that for yourself, but I want to know that table at that cafe. You have to tell us the background story. Why is that your favorite table? How did that happen?
So yeah, it's my favorite cafe first because, as I mentioned, my freshman year I wasn't on scholarship, but I played. And in college, they kind of force you to live on campus. Freshman year, fine, I live on campus. Because you have a ton of time commitments and it's just a transition period. In college, you're supposed to live on campus your freshman year. My sophomore year, I still wasn't on scholarship because they scholarship Vincenzo after me. And my parents were like, why would you live 20 minutes from home when you can live at home? And I thought, well, that's a good point. And it was college in Berkeley was, I think, 10, 12 miles from my house. It was a 20-minute drive. So instead of living on campus, spending a lot of money for rent, I moved back home and lived at home, commuted to and from school. So whenever I had a break in between classes or before practice, I couldn't just go back to my dorm room because I didn't have one. So I'd go to this cafe. It was free Wi-Fi, good coffee, and it was strategically located right on the corner, on the edge of campus where a lot of people walk past, and it was just a perfect place to people watch, to do some homework, mostly people watch, sometimes homework. So that became
that's that European spirit in here,
Exactly.
Just people watch. That's all we do here also.
Just sit there, be seen, look around, do the crossword, make it look like you're smart, like you know what it is, you know what you're doing. And
nice.
But it was just it became a spot for me that was like my refuge, my respite. Also because my freshman year, the year before, I forgot to mention this, my dad would come visit and have lunch with me once a week. We'd always go have a sandwich and we'd go have a cup of coffee from that spot. So that weekly visit was like a sense of stability in the crazy roller coaster of, we're playing USC this week in front of 93,000 people at the LA Coliseum. It's like, Jesus, how am I going to manage this, you know, emotionally as an 18-year-old kid coming from playing in front of 600 people? I got no idea what I'm doing on the field, you know? So that became, again, a source of refuge, a place of stability, of almost like safety for me.
Wow, and that's so awesome.
Yeah, it remained that throughout my college experience, and that's why I took my first contract, and signed it there on campus, on that bench in the little courtyard.
Nice.
That's awesome. Before we jump to the NFL, what was the biggest game of your college career? Attendance-wise, importance-wise, everything.
Yeah, so I think it was that USC game my freshman year in attendance. I'm pretty sure it was 93,000. That's what I remember hearing over the loudspeaker. And it was at the LA Coliseum. We were a good team that year, and they ended up beating us 35-3. I made a field goal. Thank God. But I remember just stepping on the field, and there was like a double-decker stadium right there, and it just felt like they were on top of you, even though it was pretty wide and spread out. Like there was just people looking down on me doing, you know, while I was kicking. It was wild. So that was, attendance-wise, probably the biggest game. I think in terms of importance, probably my freshman or sophomore year, because we were a good team, and towards the end of the year we were trying to qualify for a good bowl game. I can't think of one game specifically that was like a big game. I just remember we played the next year, sophomore year, USC at home, and the stadium was so full you could only barely see the walkways up the stadium. It's just like one mass of people all the way around the stadium. I thought that was a moment in atmosphere that struck me, because it was twilight, there was a beautiful sky, and there was just a mass of people. And then Taylor Mays picked off our quarterback a few times, and I just remember the stadium going quiet. Like, oh, there it goes. They're all good.
Let's jump to the 49ers. So you signed for the 49ers. I assume you had the rookie mini camp and all of that. How was that experience for you?
It was eye-opening as well, because I didn't really know what to expect. And I had a similar mindset going into college, right? I don't even know why I'm here. It's kind of a surprise. Let's just enjoy it and let's see what happens, right? Kind of a laissez-faire, be present, and everything is a gift. Keep that attitude of gratitude, that kind of American optimism mentality, and see what happens. And I kicked very well in rookie mini camp. I kicked great throughout training camp. I learned a lot from David Akers, and he was so kind to become kind of a mentor to me. I think we connected also on a personal level because we have very similar personalities, and he went out of his way to make me feel welcome, comfortable, taught me a lot, as I said, and he's still one of my mentors. Like, I still chat with him somewhat regularly. I visited him in his place in Tennessee quite a few times.
And Giorgio, just to mention, he's my all-time favorite kicker because I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So, yeah.
And I remember in training camp, this is another story, we would use arena with uprights. So it's half the width of NFL uprights in training camp. And I rarely saw him miss. And I remember percentage-wise, he's probably in the mid-90s. On the arena uprights, like, amazing. It was so impressive. There were days, I swear, and I wasn't just like kissing his butt. There were days where I was watching and I was like, you were like Michelangelo, and the football is the paper and the uprights are your canvas. Like, this is beautiful.
Awesome.
It's beautiful. And that's, I fell in love with the art and the science of football. So for me, it was just like watching someone do their job so well and make it look so easy was just like maestro. Wow. It's just beautiful to watch. And those are some of the things that I'll never forget, because his get-off times, too, from snap to kick were absurdly fast. So it's not like he's waiting, seeing the ball, timing it up. It's just literally a machine. Boom, 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 like perfect kick, super straight, crosswind, headwind. He was just so masterful with doing his job.
I don't think people truly appreciate and understand how hard kicking really is.
I can confirm people really don't do it, especially here in Europe, because, not a lot of people actually here know stuff about kicking, and punting. It seems just like, when you play Madden, just pressing a button and that's it. Like, you expect
even
the guy to
Madden, it's hard.
In Madden, it's definitely hard. But I'm just saying, it's just pressing a button, like a power button, an accuracy button. That's it. Like how hard can it be? But actually, it's very, and I think it's super hard. Whoever try to kick a field goal once in practice and, against no one, just the uprights, know how hard it is, especially for us here in Europe, because we're kind of, used to kick on the ground, in the goal and not over the goal post.
Yep. It is. It's something that the great ones like David Akers make it look so easy. And it's such a simple thing. If you look at it, it's someone taking 2.5 steps, and kicking a ball to the uprights. It doesn't seem complicated when you watch it. And the great ones make it look super easy. But then when you try to do it yourself, you realize how many variables, how many factors there are that contribute to the outcome, which are completely out of your control. And in games, you don't see the ball static. Everything happens pretty much within the blink of an eye, and you're on the edge of a knife with your livelihood at stake every time. And I tell people when they ask me, what does it feel like? And I tell them, well, next time you're driving on the highway, close your eyes for 2 seconds and see what that feels like.
So it's dangerous.
Disclaimer: do not do this at home. But it's a thrill. It's a thrill. It's adrenaline, because it's a paradox in that you have very little control, but a lot of responsibility, and everything happens very quickly, but you have to be incredibly precise. And it's like there's 3 people on one wavelength, and those 3 people are the snapper, the holder, and the kicker. And when it's done well, it's like someone playing the cello in a Metallica concert, because everything else going on is violence. It's chaos. And this is this beautiful symphony of snap, hold, kick, 3 parts in one, happening in a very precise and almost completely detached manner, but within the context of complete chaos.
Yeah. So now when you said it, I actually wanted to ask, that was like my one of my next questions. So like, if you have to share, as you said, like it's a 3 people involved mostly, right? So like, how much is up to kicker, like percentage wise, the holder and the snapper? I mean, obviously the kicker has, if you ask me, the most difficult job. But I know that if a snap is bad, then you could be the best kicker in the world. The snap is bad, you gave the other guys a chance to get to you. If the hold is bad, then, your motion as a kicker will be, messed up with, and then, you might not kick the perfect ball. So like, if you have to just like, share it in percentage wise, how much is it, between these 3 positions?
Sure. In my opinion, it's probably 75% the hold. And if the holder is very good, then it's maybe a little bit more on the kicker. But the hold is very dependent on where the snap is, right? And obviously in NFL, the snappers are really good, the holders are really good, right? It's a little bit of a different story in Europe. You can have the greatest kicker ever, but if you can't place the ball right, and literally the difference is this, for me as a lefty, the ball has to be a little bit lean to my left. If it's here, I have a good chance of missing the kick. If it's here, I have a good chance of missing the kick. So it's a few degrees of difference that make meters of difference in the air. So that's where the hold is critical, because if the holder's a little bit off and the kicker's got a strong leg, the ball can go anywhere. So I think most of it is on the hold, which is very dependent on where the snap is. So maybe 10% snap, 75% hold, and the rest is on the kicker. But honestly, with my experience, a lot of the kickers that I know, the kicker he just closes his eyes and kicks. It's just an automatic reaction, right? So you don't have time to adjust to what's happening to the ball or the hold. You have a very little bit of time, maybe a tiny bit of leeway, but you really don't see the ball. And when you're approaching the ball, on your penultimate step, your brain takes a little screenshot, and then you're basically kicking off that. And you hope that the ball is fixed at that point. If you have a good holder, it will be. If you have a good snapper, the holder's got an easier job, right? So it all starts with the snap, but it's the hold that's the most important part of this whole operation. So if that's right, then the kicker's got a good chance. If he's got a good level of technique and he's very repeatable, then it's just like a machine. It's like a slot machine. You pull the slot, boom, boom. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, it does, And I just wanted to ask, like, the moment you kick it, do you know? Is it going in or not? Is it going left? Is it going right? But
especially with wind.
Yeah, especially with wind or rain or snow, you know, when everything is different. But at that moment when you kick it, I'm assuming you're still watching at the ground, right? Your sight is not going all the way up to the goal. This is my assumption.
Okay, so yes, you do. In my experience, you do know, you have a good idea of whether you hit the ball clean or not. And when you hit it clean, you pretty much know, okay, it's going to go where it's supposed to go. And you just kind of maybe finish a little bit more piece. There's a few times, though, where ooh, that didn't feel very good. And that can be a slight difference in where you felt it on your foot instead of on the sweet spot or somewhere else. Or if you felt off balance. And those are kind of the 2 points that your body automatically gives you as feedback, right? Did you hit it in the right spot, and were you balanced? Based on those things, you have a pretty clear idea of where the ball's going. Now, with wind, with rain, especially with wind, after that ball's off your foot, the wind can move the ball a lot. So that's when you gotta hopefully aim and adjust for the wind, but you still gotta hit the kick the best way possible, because if you aim, let's just say you have a strong left to right wind. For me as a lefty, that means my kick is going to curve to the right as a lefty. I have to aim a little bit further left, so to adjust for that ball movement, especially on maybe some longer kicks. But if I aim left and I'm hitting it too much down the middle or hit it to the right, then it doesn't matter because the wind's going to take it to the right. I need to put the ball where I'm aiming to then have the wind gently kiss it where it's supposed to go. Does that,
right.
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But one of the plays from the last season was Justin Tucker's game winner from 66 yards.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine that. Yeah, that's even a record.
But so, and people ask me too, who do I think is the best kicker in the NFL history? And for me, it's Justin Tucker. Ironically, we played our last college game against each other in our bowl game. I was at Cal Berkeley, he was at the University of Texas. We played in the Holiday Bowl in 2011. Mm-hmm. And I chatted with him a little bit in pregame. He had a great college career. He was complimentary to me. It was great. And I just remember, he's a pretty good kicker. And then the next spring, he just became a Martian. He went on to be an unbelievable kicker. And what I admire of him is his expressiveness, right? Because as a kicker, a lot of times I feel like I can't express my full personality because I need to be a bit of a robot, right? As I said earlier, kicker takes his steps and then just turns off and just reacts. And it's just very robotic, mechanical reaction pump. Same thing over and over again. With him, it just feels like he loves that attention and loves expressing himself. And I think he has the right because he drills the kicks. And he doesn't just make them, he drills them. They go dead middle, perfect rotation, super far. And that's very difficult because he hits the ball very hard from very extreme body angles, which makes it really difficult to be precise. It's almost like a baseball player who's always trying to hit a home run. He might strike out a lot. Mm-hmm. He's trying to hit a home run. He's trying to hit an 80-yard field goal every time he's on the field, whether it's an extra point or a 66-yard field goal, but he rarely mishits the ball. So that's incredibly impressive. And on that 66-yard field goal, if you notice, he took a little extra step before the snap. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, I'll just say it was concurrent to the snap, so it wasn't before the snap. He just took a little extra gallop, and that gave him that little extra to get through the ball. Yeah. But again, there is so much that can go wrong from start to finish, from snap to kick, that you have to be pretty perfect to make it from 66. He had one chance, and he did it perfectly. But it's magical. It's magical to me.
I agree. And there is one more thing I would like to ask before we go back to your career in the NFL and just ask a few more questions about it. So sometimes during our show, for example, we have a kicker missing an extra point which decided the game, or missed 3 field goal tries within 30 yards or something, which is kind of, for the NFL standards, you have to kick it. And we kind of discussed, what it's like to be on the sidelines after that, with all these big, as you said, violent monsters guys just kind of looking at you or not looking at you or just thinking praying. Hey, we lost the game because of this skinny kicker, or this guy who just had one job, kick the damn ball through the uprights and score 3 points for us. So like, did it ever happen to you? And if not, is that like really the thing going on, or it's just like our fantasy, thinking that guys might not see their kicker as like like
a real teammate.
Yeah, not like but like a real football player, in that way.
It's a very good point. I've been asked that before. I think it all depends on the character of the kicker. And as a kicker, you just have to realize you got a bunch of alpha males around you. You can't be an alpha male. Physically, you don't have the same level of imposition, and your job is very different. So if a kicker is quiet, humble, gets along with everybody, yeah, it's going to suck in those moments. And I've been in those situations where it's just that you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you just feel like an idiot because you could make that kick, and it's just sometimes you miss. It's very difficult, and it's very easy to miss, just like it's very easy to make the kick. But again, a lot of it is out of your control, and you just kind of got to accept it. You just got to take a big old spoonful of crap and eat it, and you try to keep, positive body language. You stay respectful of everyone and everybody and everything, and you just try to move on, because essentially what was taught to me, whether it was Acres or college, like the most important kick is always the next one. So whether you crush a 66-yarder or you miss an extra point or whatever, the next kick is the most important one. You try to stay ready for that kick. It does feel unfair sometimes that there's, 200 plays in a game, and if you miss a field goal and you lose by a couple points, it's very easy, and it's almost like a cop-out. It's a intellectually easy answer to say, well, it's because that field goal at that moment. When it's just you're part of a long chain of events that you have no control over, and you step out in the field, you do your best. Sometimes it goes in, sometimes it doesn't. That the reality of the game can be perverted to say, well, we lost because of this play or this kick, but that's just the reality of it, and it's unfair sometimes. But maybe in reality, it's unfair that we get to determine games sometimes if the ball goes in when everyone else has been sacrificing their bodies the whole game. So there's these complexities to the game of football that is super interesting, because if I put myself in the shoes of an NFL owner, he's paying millions and millions of dollars to his quarterback, to star receivers, and all of a sudden the game comes down to a field goal from some dude whose name you can't pronounce. probably has no idea who he is, wearing two different shoes. It's kind of interesting. That's why.
Yeah, you're completely right, Giorgio. To be honest, yes, completely right. And in life of a kicker, like we saw a season where a team changed like 3 kickers during a season. They started with one, got injured, they signed another guy, didn't perform well, they signed the third guy, he was like so, and then at the end of the season, the third guy got cut as well, and then the first guy got cut because someone younger just came in who's not that prone to injury. And it's kind of, as you said, like when you put it, and how many games are determined within a field goal? Like a lot, right?
A lot.
And like if you miss an extra point or a field goal try, it can cost you a game. If you miss in the second quarter, first quarter, third quarter, we've seen so many games.
Yeah. The Falcons kicker who had 4 game winners this season. So he basically in those terms gave the Falcons 4 wins.
Yeah, or like Vinatieri, right? Like the legend,
Yeah, it's true. But again, it's those like there was 199 other plays in those games, and it's very easy to say, well, this one won the game. No, I just finished off a long chain of events, right? But to your point about teams changing kickers, like the ironic thing about the example you just brought up, all those 3 kickers are really good kickers. Sometimes it just might not work out for some reason. Maybe
is that a mental thing? I heard a lot about it. Like when kickers just start missing, it's all in their head, and they just go AWOL. They can't return to the previous form.
Yes and no. Again, it depends. I think on a case-by-case basis. A lot of kickers kick by feel, right? So when you're in your zone, you got the good feel. There's a good rhythm. There's a good tempo with the snap and the hold. You're just kind of on, right? And when you don't feel that feeling, it feels like you can do whatever you can do anything in the world, and you still can't feel that feeling. And it's metaphysical in that way, and it's really frustrating because we've made it into a science with measuring steps and biomechanical analysis, and you can bring in all these factors as to what is happening. But you still can't answer why. Why on one kick it goes in and one kick it doesn't, right? But that's maybe the beauty of sports or the beauty of life. There's no perfect correlation. The difficulty with the kicker is that you live your life based on that, trying to get to that correlation, trying to get that perfection, which is unattainable, right? But you're kind of living on that ride, and it's a hell of a ride.
Right.
Yeah, we should continue with your NFL career. The next couple of years, actually, the next few years, you were signed by the Packers, the Lions, and you spent most of the time with the Raiders. But how was that feeling? You know, you get signed, then released, then signed again and released. How difficult is that, actually?
It's very difficult because no matter how hard you try to make it into pure business, right? Hey, They had a kicker, that's been playing for them for 15 years. He's their all-time leading point scorer. They're not going to cut him. Just because I kicked really well, right?
It's hard not Janikowski for the Raiders?
Or Mason Crosby when I was in Green Bay. I kicked very, very, very well in Green Bay when I competed with Crosby, and he kicked well too. But to replace someone like that, you probably have to be better than perfect, or it just has to be the right time, right? Which kind of was the case with Oakland, because Seabass unfortunately just had some physical issues that he just couldn't recover from. Mm-hmm. It's hard though, because it is a business decision, but it's hard not to take it personally when you invest so much of your time and energy and your whole being into doing this one job really, really, really well, because you love to do the job, you love to do it well, and you just want the opportunity to keep doing it. And when you get cut, it's deflating. Now, I had the good fortune of continuously getting re-signed, and maybe some other guys never had that good fortune, right? They had one training camp, they did great, but the next training camp they didn't get signed and they just stopped kicking. Difficult because there's so few spots, and it's really hard to not take it personally and not kind of create this perverted dynamic of I'm not good enough, because that's not the case. There's probably 50, 55, 60 kickers good enough physically to play in the NFL. There's 32 spots. The difference, let's just leave Justin Tucker out, maybe one or two other guys who are just better for whatever reason, which I'm really curious about, but it's for me, it's fascinating to see. And then everyone else is pretty much, there isn't that much difference.
Right. And what about when you turn the Madden on and see your rating? Are you like, what? You guys gave me 70 kicking power or something like that?
Well, no, there's been a few times where it's been presented to me and they tell me about the rating, and then I tell them how much I got for the Madden check, and they're quiet. No, I'm kidding. But it's cool to be on those games and to feel like you're not immortalized, because you're not, but just to be doing something that is so commercialized, or that is so important in American culture, that it's very special. It's a privilege. It really is a privilege.
Yeah, we know the reactions of the players that are in the 99 club. Like, that's legit one of their lifetime dreams. I have to be a 99. Yeah, but still, it's such amazing to see, you get the necklace and everything. Like, oh, I'm a 99 player now. So you played, you spoke actually about Akers, what type of a master he is at his position, but you played, as you said, with Packers, with the Lions, with the Raiders, and you obviously... With the Packers, there was Rodgers. With the Lions, there was Calvin Johnson. Did you have the time to see them actually practice, and how good are they at their craft? When you compare, you said that Akers was a maestro, but how are they at their positions?
When it comes to other position players, there's guys that are born better, like a Calvin Johnson. He's just big and really fast. But then he works like he's undersized, right? Yeah. So when you get to be around players like that, you realize they have all the tools to just not try hard and just dominate anyways. And then they're so disciplined and dedicated in their training. And that's what, to me, gained the most respect. Someone like him, or even like Khalil Mack, I was around. There's a couple guys that come to mind. Julio Jones too. Just physically, they are such incredible athletes, which then they work super hard to develop their athleticism and their craft, that it's a beautiful thing in a way, you know, because they could just coast. And there's a lot of guys that, or not a lot, but there's some guys that might do that, just kind of coast, but then they're not reaching their full potential. And what I respect is the guys that could coast, but they work hard anyway, and right. They just dominate. You know, even like an Aaron Donald, guys like that, where they're just built better, they're just superior. I remember there's a tight end on the Raiders at one point who I was in the locker room, and he asked Khalil, said, "Khalil, do you thank God every day for just making you better than everybody?" Special athletes.
So Giorgio, how many teams in the NFL did you change, you know, like throughout the years? And how many years did you spend in the NFL in total, you know, like?
Sure. So 2012 with the 49ers, training camp, preseason, everything. 2013, same thing with the Green Bay Packers, off-season, training camp, preseason. Detroit Lions, 2014, off-season, training camp, preseason. Oakland Raiders, 2015, 16, 17, and 18. 15, 16 was off-season, training camp, preseason. Then 17, I made it to the regular season. Then 2018, I got cut halfway through training camp. And then 2018 and 19 with the Atlanta Falcons. I was released at the end of training camp in 2019. Wasn't on a team in 2020 because of the weird COVID year. And then I was on the Tennessee Titans practice squad for a couple of weeks in 2021. So 6 teams in 9 years. Obviously, my most notable successes were with the Oakland Raiders and the Atlanta Falcons. But in most cases, I was on the team from January to September. And then I get cut right before the season because they'd only keep 1 kicker on the roster. They wouldn't keep 2, even though I was kicking lights out, which is, we talked about earlier, was very difficult.
Yeah, but in 2020, yeah, it was the COVID year, but the XFL should have started then, and you were on the roster for the Los Angeles Wildcats. What are your thoughts about that? How did you feel? Like, obviously you were for sure excited of starting a new journey, but what was that like?
It was a cool experience too, because it was a chance to get back in games, right? As a kicker, the best thing you can do is be playing in games, because you can really replicate the same stress, maybe not call it stress, excitement or game dynamics of standing around for 4 hours and kicking 4 times in practice. You have to be in a game, be in a team setting. So when they called me, I was super excited because I was in LA at the time anyways. And I thought, great, get back in the game, get back on the radar, right? That I'm playing in games and playing in front of people. I'm getting game film. And when I arrived at the hotel, one of the first things I saw was one of the coaches smoking a vape, or one of the cigarettes. I thought, okay, well, this is how it is. And then after the game, which we actually won, they gave us a bunch of Bud Light limes, or was it Bud Light seltzers? And they said, you have to celebrate because that's one of our sponsors. So we were just like making a mess in the locker room. So it was a little bit more of a fun league, right? And it was cool. And then unfortunately with COVID, everything stopped a week after the world kind of shut down, unfortunately.
And Giorgio, I'm about to ask this. I'm not sure, but yeah, just wanted to check. Like, have you ever like kicked in a playoff game in the NFL?
Unfortunately, not. We were close in Oakland and Atlanta. Never made it to the playoffs, unfortunately. And I've asked guys about it, and they say it's like playing a 1-game season. It's kind of like being in high school again, because in high school, when you play in the league, then you play playoffs, and it's 1 game in or you're out, right? In college, it's not the same because, well, kind of now, but you play a bowl game and that's it, right? So it's like there's more on the line for each playoff game, which also make a lot more money. So it's like a interesting dynamic too.
Right. And right now, so we said you're at Barcelona. You're in the ELF team. You're playing for the Barcelona Dragons. And how's that experience? Like compared to the NFL, to the college level, you know, we've been talking about ELF for some quite time here at our podcast. Had a couple of guys one guy from Wroclaw. He's a Serbian, Goran Zec. We spoke with Aleksandar Milanovic from Vienna Vikings. You guys played them last weekend. So how's that your experience in the ELF so far?
To me, it's been an absolute blessing, especially on a personal level, because it's allowed me to enjoy football a little bit more. Obviously, the stakes aren't quite as high in terms of money or stage or attention as the NFL, but that wasn't my aim in coming out to Europe. My aim was helping to build a professional future of American football in Europe. And I was pleasantly surprised to see the level of talent here in Europe, the level of passion here in Europe of all the players that are playing because they just love the game, and the stage that the ELF has created in the past 2 years. I think we have a very entertaining and polished finished product that we present every weekend for fans. And that to me makes me optimistic for the future, because when you have that entertainment value, right, not just the game, but at the stadiums with the cheerleaders, the halftime show, all the accoutrements of American football, in my mind, it suggests that there's an opportunity to keep this, to make this really a serious professional league. So for me, it's been the best of both worlds, and that I'm able to enjoy football a little bit more and not be so defined by a field goal percentage, right? And feel like my whole being is just if the ball goes in or not, right? I feel like I have kilometers and kilometers of me that I want to give, but in the NFL, they're not asking for all that. They're asking for 6 yards, 6 inches. You have to fit your entire self into that. It's very conditional. Here, I feel like I'm appreciated for some of the more personal qualities that I can bring to the people around me, whether it's a level of dedication, respect, attention to detail, professionalism, and going about doing my job. And for me, it's just a pleasure to be able to share that and have that be impactful to the people around me. You know, and one of the examples I bring up is I've gotten very close with our punter, Luis Cereceda. He's a 34-year-old ex-MMA athlete, semi-pro athlete in Spain, and he's been kicking for 3 or 4 years, punting for 3 or 4 years in Spain. And we developed a close bond last year. This year, he became the starting punter. And to see his growth from last year to the first couple weeks of the season to now how he's punting, it brings me, I kid you not, it brings me more joy and satisfaction to see him punt really well in a game than when I kick a nice field goal. Because for one reason or another, being able to have that impact on somebody and to see the joy in their eyes and the satisfaction is very, very, very meaningful to me. And I feel like I have the opportunity to do that in the ELF.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's actually so beautiful.
Truly.
Giorgio, last question. What are the expectations for Barcelona Dragons? Before we started recording, you told us that you had a magical quarterback. And I agree, your quarterback is probably the best in the league. But what are your expectations for this season?
I think everybody agrees within the organization there's something special. We all get along super well. It's a great group of guys that have gelled really well. Guys from France, from Denmark, obviously from Spain, me from Italy. And we feel like there's a great feeling among us. There's a great team personality. We have a great time with football. We're not particularly serious or overly intense. We have a very carefree attitude. So we want to keep being that personality, keep living that joy and carefreeness while playing football, and see where it can take us. I think we're realizing that we have something special, and I think as we move forward, hopefully we can keep being sharp and disciplined in the right ways while keeping our personality, because that's what makes it all a really fun experience, is to be around people that are very genuine, or very open, very, very fun-loving, and they express that on the field. So I want us to keep living that, expressing it, and play well and perform well.
Amazing. I mean, Giorgio, thank you so much for this conversation. Yeah. This was for me, I know, and for you, Jimmy, as well, an amazing story.
Yes, for sure, man. And thank you for sharing it with us, and thank you for sharing it with our audience here. Before we started the conversation, we said we don't get the chance really to talk with a lot of guys with NFL experience. And thank you for doing this, and to telling the world here in the Balkans, and not just in the Balkans, because we did it in English, so anyone can really listen to it and understand. Just to tell your story and your experience, it means a lot to us. Because we really try to, make football a worldwide sport and really make it popular here in the Balkans.
It's been my pleasure. As you can tell, I like to talk. Sometimes I talk too much, but really enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to keeping in touch. And thank you guys for the support and the kind words.
And anytime, bro. Good luck for the rest of the season, and we'll definitely stay in touch. Take care.
Ciao,
Take
ciao.
care. Ciao.